guys, and we're racing.
Hightower pushes Jensen along the exit of turn number 4.
This win, it's the big slide. It's time to go racing at GRIDLIFE Midwest. Hill side by side. O'Gorman around the outside now for the top spot. Tom O'Gorman goes to lead. 3 wide the lead.
This is great racing, folks. This is what this series is all about.
Day 2 from Topeka, Kansas brings the final day of competition for GRIDLIFE Finals at Heartland Motorsports Park. Welcome back to GRIDLIFE's Finals, round number 10 in the 2022 championship here in Topeka, Kansas for the second time. Kyle Heyer joined by Greg Kramer. Greg, good morning. It is a cool morning, a little bit better than yesterday, though, but we're going racing here in a couple minutes, and that's going to bring a whole new dimension to what we saw yesterday.
Oh, it is, and you're absolutely right. I mean, yesterday it was just brutally cold and windy. Today the wind has died down. We've got sun out there. The temperature is still low, but it feels much better. The issue is it's still going to take that track a little time to really get some heat into it, which means on this pace lap now 2, as I've been informed, that that is what is going to be really important to try and get some heat into the tires.
Yeah, heat in the tires. So we're going to have 2 pace laps for our second GLTC race of the weekend. We've got GLTC track battle all day long. So coming up today, GLTC race 2, track battle, GLTC top 10 shootout. Then we go back to track battle, then GLTC race 3, then track battle, then back to GLTC, where we're going to wrap up the weekend here for competitive sessions for GLTC and track battle. I think the track battle guys have a few sessions tomorrow, but most of those classes are getting wrapped up and clinched today, so we'll see how things wrap up and turn out here later this afternoon. But glad to be back with you here at Heartland Motorsports Park. Let's have a look here at our track map and have a look. There's Marku setting up, get ready to shoot some photos for us here. But I'll have a look at our track map. 2.5 miles, 14 corners around here, Greg. It is a fast racetrack. We saw yesterday, though, that it's not without its gremlins. There are some places you can break some things around here.
There definitely are. And one of the key stories is where that start-finish line is into turn 1. It's a long run compared to a lot of different tracks that we race on from the green flag into that first turn. So the cars with a little bit of torque can make something happen there. That 1-2, you climb and then drop through that. It's a nice little elevation change. Turn 3, it actually makes most of that elevation back up in a bank corner, so you can attack that corner. You use the banking and the gravity. Turn 4, really quick flowing corner. 5 is tight. 6 is tight. 6 is huge because it's one of the 2 key traction events. It leads out through a flat-out turn 7 all the way into that fast chicane down into 10. Then you start to compromise lines all the way from 10 through 13 to get you set up for that drive out of 14. Again, a major traction event onto the longest straight section, if you will, of this track. Challenging, and it's got those fast-flowing corners. It's got those really tight technical corners on the other end of the track, and a little bit of elevation change, so it's fun.
It is a really fun racetrack. We saw Eric, well, we didn't see it. We heard that Eric Cattell had a little loop yesterday in front of Matt Waldbaum. That's how that position changed on the final lap. Austin Hurdle had a mechanical component, Greg. That car broke yesterday. We found out it was a control arm. You got some more on that?
I do, and he said, you know, it's on me. I was really working the curbs, and he said he clouded one pretty good, and they think that's what broke it. The car had been going loose before that, so it was already in a little bit of trouble. He could not find even a stock control arm, let alone one of the Nismo competition control arms that he runs on the car. So this morning they found a welding and fab shop that said, bring it in. We'll weld it up for you, and he's going to make the start, and obviously welds can be pretty sturdy, so we'll see if it holds, but it's just nice. He had such good speed yesterday, running top 5 throughout, so it's good to see him back on the grid. He's got a lot of work to do coming from deep in the pack, though.
He certainly does, and another driver that had an issue was Andy Smedegard yesterday. He had an issue that repeated itself after his Thursday test day, and that was a broken spindle in the rear of the car. Now, of course, ASM is really well prepped. They fixed that car, but in terms of the points picture, that was not a good situation for Andy Smedegard. In terms of the points, he's battling Jeremy Swenson. He was 1 point behind him coming into the weekend. As it stands, if things were to finish as it is right now, 131 points for Swenson, 109 for Andy Smedegard for second and third in the championship.
Lost a big chunk, so he's really got to finish out strong. And again, he's going to be starting at the back I mean, he did get a lap time, so he won't be at the absolute back. That was the one saving grace for him, was he actually turned a lap time before he had the issue, so he will be able to start top top 5. So we know he's got the ability. I mean, you look at the season he's had, it's absolutely stellar. And when you combine that with the fact he runs ASM, and he's more often than not working on other people's cars as much as his, the season he's put together in terms of results is just superb. And he's got the speed. So let's hope everything plays out for him here. So he at least has that opportunity. And for Austin Hurdle, he had a lap before his incident as well that has him starting up into the top 10. So at least for them, they don't have to come from the back of the pack because it was fast laps, not finishing order.
Yeah, but today will be finishing order for race number 3. Except the top 10 finishers of the second race are going to re-qualify a little later this morning in what we call the GLTC Top 10 Shootout. Your fastest lap, you get one shot. It's going to put you on your starting grid for race number 3. The rest of the positions will be done by finishing order from race number 2. Other battles to talk about, the one between Eric Jensen and Zach Lavoie. There was 4 points separating those drivers coming into the weekend, now only 2. Now remember how the points are done here. At the end of the weekend, we renormalize everybody's race point total with the 25-point scale. So at this stage, we're not really just adding points. We're just kind of shuffling around the order that they're going to finish in the weekend in theory, and then reassign those numbers, and that's how these numbers are changing. So really, for Zach Lavoie, he just needs to finish better in the weekend than Eric Jensen to gain a couple points.
And, you know, to explain that, I think in a really simple way, there's 4 races. If you win all 4, that's 100 points.
Yep.
But at the end of the weekend, the points you earn is 25 because, as you said, it's restructured. So that's what we're tracking. So right now, for these, as we get through now race 1, and we got 2 more, up until we complete race 4, when we're talking about here's the current point order, that just means if it were to end now.
Exactly.
And there'll always be that 4th race, and then everything is truly settled. He's the guy right there, Tom O'Gorman, who is literally in the catbird seat. I mean, it's really his race, his season to lose. It's been a staggeringly impressive season for him. And just to give you a little perspective, you know, the track record was set here last year by Justin Kelly, a 1:42.6. In qualifying, Tomo unleashed a 1:40.915. Just an incredibly good run. Didn't get away from Swenson in yesterday's race. Within the last couple of laps, Jeremy had a little moment where he lost a little bit of time. And Tomo had said, it was interesting, he said, I got to about 2/3 into the race. He goes, believe it or not, these new Bridgestone tires, I finally figured out how to drive them when they start to wear. And he said, because the lateral grip goes away, but the launch grip is still there. So he said, I started to get the car to rotate more, get less angle into the turn, and be able to get the power down so it would just accelerate forward as opposed to trying to accelerate while I'm turning. And he said, suddenly I was finding more and more speed. So between those two things, he was able to gap Swenson just a little bit.
Yeah, and I think I talked to Tom yesterday, and he said, hey, did you see me go off? I go, no, you won the race. How'd you go off? Well, at turn 8, he turned in, and there was dust and debris from the previous lap. Someone had gone off there. He went off the track himself, and that's why we saw him lose a little ground to Jeremy Swenson. So we thought that Jeremy was gaining ground on him, but that's not really the case. Tomo had an incident of his own. So lots going on. We're like playing whack-a-mole trying to follow all the battles here this week.
It's been pretty impressive. And you were talking about, you know, the Thorn Smedegard, you know, what the Swenson Thorn Smedegard battle. Well, that's really snugged up because Smedegard now with that issue, if it were to finish now, is only 5 points clear. So he's in that. Thorn will start outside of the front row, and you know he qualified 7th, but then he was wicked quick in the race, and all he did was he said, I opted to run the Bridgestones, and he said it just really solved all of the issues that I was struggling with in the car. So in terms of the O'Gorman, Swenson, Smedegard, the whole program up front, Thorn could literally be that in the sides of some of these guys up there because he is quick here.
He is quick, and he's going to be starting on that front row alongside O'Gorman. Think back to the start yesterday. It was Tomo and Jeremy Swenson on the front row. Jeremy got the better launch and was actually a nose ahead when they hit Alpha, but he bailed out. He wasn't quite sure where the grip level was going to be, and he was thankful yesterday that he did that because he turned in for turn 2, and the car just understeered. That's when we saw him get really close to Andy. He went over, and they were chatting it out yesterday. Certainly those drivers are fierce competitors, but also friends. But boy, Jeremy, he bailed out, and it was probably a good thing that he did.
Yeah, if he hadn't, it would have pushed right off, probably into Andy, if not into Andy, off track anyway. And so, he was dealing with that. The other interesting story, we talked about the Eric Jensen's Zach Lavoie, and Eric had a mega start yesterday. Went from 9th to 7th right away, and then just played his cards beautifully up there and drove a really solid race. He got his only win here last year. He likes this place. He said, I'm not sure that me and the car right now are going to be able to get up into podium contention. But, hey, he got that win after the inversion that starts, race 4, depending upon where you sit. Maybe, he'll be back up there with a shout.
There's a lot of drivers that are licking their lips for that field inversion later today because this track is pretty tricky to pass on. So if you can start up front, you have a pretty good chance of staying up front. One driver that moved up a bunch of spots yesterday was Scott Robertson, by the way. We should mention the Robertson Racing number 213. He finished in, looks like, where was he at? 10th place, a top 10 for Scott Robertson in a field this deep. That is a phenomenal run for Scott. And also to mention Matan Rosenberg up into 7th with a similarly colored Miata. Great runs for both of those drivers. One other car that had a loop that we didn't catch right on the start was Brian DeFries. Had a wild slide into turn 1 off to driver's left, slid into the runoff, carried on and continued, but he just kind of got a little out of shape. No contact there, just spun out on his own.
And you were talking about great drives in the race. Well, Jason Saney, who qualified 10th, but got DQ'd, and he knew he would because they're still working on the car, and it wasn't quite in spec, so he knew it. He made up 18 spots during that race. In this field, that's a great drive. The other guy who put in one heck of a drive was the 17 of Tony Marchev in the Tony Motor Performance Honda S2000. He made up 15 spots, going from 28th to 13th in that race, so I'd be keeping an eye on him. And there's the one of our drivers, Robert Vierhout, who couldn't race in the first race yesterday, but you did a little digging and found that he's going to be out for this morning's race.
Yeah, he messaged me last night really late and updated me on the situation. I didn't even see him yet this weekend. In practice yesterday, got locked in out of 3rd gear, which is a really important gear to have here because that's basically where you dig out of every corner. Got a transmission in nearby Lawrence and just got it swapped in last night. Should be good to go for the start for race number 2. So Robert was at PPIR, had a good battle there. Got a little left side door damage in that event, but back ready to rip with us here this morning.
Yeah, and it's, we love to have every competitor that enters that shows up to be able to race. Things happen, but, you get a lot of help in this paddock as we've seen.
And Colton Wade, by the way, remember we talked about his car having an accident in practice? Well, he donated his entire rear end of his M3 over to Wes Case after he had an issue yesterday. So, again, parts sharing, that's common here. We've seen that a lot. You mentioned Tony Marchev. That engine was swapped by Myriad Motorsports on Thursday night. And Tony, again, this is his first round with us here in GLTC, and again, he got the full GRIDLIFE experience right out of the gate and had a phenomenal run.
How did you get home last night? Because the last I saw, as Cerise reported on, there ain't no wheel on it.
Yeah, my car's in pieces right now donating parts, so we took an Uber back to the hotel last night and carpooled back this morning. But I've heard that for Piero Pucci, who had that accident, they've got a new part coming in. They're going to put all of my parts back on my car, and I'll get to drive back to the hotel on my own tonight. So
all right, good.
Just waiting for the kickoff of GLTC Race number 2. If you just joined us, if you've never seen GLTC, power to weight, single class racing series, club racing level, but pro racing entertainment.
And driving ability. That's, at the sharp end of this field, these drivers are as good as they come. And that's what makes it fascinating because, one, you can do all kinds of engine swaps, because it's still down to the power versus weight. But you've got a big thumping V8 Corvettes going up against 4-cylinder sport compacts. And you've got people that are dropping V8s into smaller cars. All kinds of things there because it doesn't matter because it all comes down to that power to weight ratio. And, so a heavier car has the torque, which is going to be helpful at this place, coming out of 6, coming out of 14, right? And also in traffic, torque, that little bit extra low end is always going to help you. But what makes it fascinating is by the end of the race, those heavier cars have used their tires up a little bit more. The brakes maybe aren't quite as effective. And so at the end of the race, everything sort of comes together, and the racing is absolutely fantastic. And if you can run I'm going to put on a fatter tire. That's great. More weight. I'm going to run some aero.
Who's that dancing around over there? Is that trying to see if that's Carson or who is that?
That's too fun.
Bouncing around. Oh, it's Colton Wade.
It's Colton.
It's our buddy Colton having a dance this
fun
morning.
Down there.
Man, we like to have fun here in GRIDLIFE. That's what it's all about here, Greg. If you've just joined us on Twitch, welcome. Thanks for joining us here today as we get set for our race 2 of the weekend in GLTC. 4 races this weekend, 3 more today. And the pace car is about to roll off, and a 40-car field is about to take to the green flag.
And I got to tell you, you're sitting in the grid, and at most other venues, you see that very disciplined, all right, here we go. Come. You see somebody doing that, that's going to light your fuse. You're going to be sitting there going, yeah, buddy, I get to race. Let's go. I love it.
It's just awesome. And again, Colton Wade is typically a competitor with us. He had a great year in terms of finding pace in his BMW M3 with Fields Auto Works and regular guy racing. But unfortunately had an accident earlier this weekend on his own in practice and damaged that race car. They've had a lot of gremlins that they've been trying to sort out. They had a pedal box failure at PPIR. They ended up borrowing the Acura RSX that they purchased from Jeremy Boysen earlier in the year to get through the weekend. But Colton really needs some good luck coming his way, man, because he has put in the effort and he's always got a smile on his face.
Oh, he is just, Mr. Cheery and enthusiastic, and this is the perfect role for him to play if he can't be driving, is to get the field out on the track with some energy and enthusiasm to light the fuse here, and he is doing just that. And one of the greatest liveries on a race car I've seen in some time. I hate that it's not out there just for that alone, amongst many other reasons.
All right, time to roll through our starting grid for GLTC race number 2 of the Heartland Park Finals. Tom O'Gorman starts on the front row. Robert Thorne rolls off alongside him in that number 180, the 95 M3.
Row 2, defending champion Jeremy Swenson, joined by Matt Walbaum in his first season of racing.
Starting in row number 3 on the inside in 5th place, that's going to be Andy Smedegard, and 2020 champion Eric Gattil starts in 6th.
Starting in row 4 on the inside, it's going to be Austin Hurdle, and we'll see if that fix holds. He'll be joined by Eric Jensen in that Scion with the big V8 in it.
Starting on the inside of row 5, Zach Lavoie, the number 42, fighting Eric Jensen. And starting in 10th, Matan Rosenberg in the 484 for Rosenberg Racing.
And next up, it'll be Jason Saney, very, very fast driver in the Porsche Cayman, joined by Jackson Jensen in the Corvette.
Row number 7 on the inside, Jake Jornstad from Myriad Motorsports. Scott Robertson rolls off 14th for Robertson Racing.
Moving back to row number 8 on the inside, it'll be Felipe Gonzalez, who had a really good qualifying and run, and Nick Stentiford in the Honda S2000.
Stentiford out of Colorado, a little bit of a trip here. Row number 9, Tony Marchev, his first weekend in GLTC, starts 17th in his S2000. Hans Horpedal from Myriad Motorsports rolls off 18th.
In row 10, it'll be Aramas Carrozas, and he will be joined by Fiona Liu, BMW, and Honda S2000.
Row number 11, Wes Case in the 02 BMW M3, and Andy Sundin in another M3, both 02s in row number 11.
Going to row number 12 on the inside is Brad Kosiba in the Mazda MX-5 Miata. Similar car in the hands of Thomas Moss on the outside.
Starting in row number 13th in 25th place, Brian DeFries in the 898 Robertson Racing Civic. Wes Penn starts 26th, the number 113 Miata.
In row 4, it's Jeremy Boysen in the Porsche Cayman, number 40, and he'll be joined by Julio Crispin in the Nissan, number 911.
Row 15, starting in 29th, Vitas Aronauskis in the 144. Savannah Little starts 30th in her MX-5.
And moving to row 16 on the inside, Justin Lautz in the Mazda Miata, number 177, and David Rudzinski in the beautiful Chevy S10 race truck.
Yes, a race truck indeed. Louis Chatroop, it will roll off in 33rd in the number 26, and Joel Morrison will roll off alongside him in the final row here in GRIDLIFE Touring Cup. By the way, that is the Brian Heitman machine. That is the number 13 out of Kansas City, Missouri, a 2022 Mazda MX-5 Miata. That's a global MX-5 Cup car with the hardtop. That car rolled off the truck 2 days ago. Brand new car.
Unbelievable. Did we ever find out what happened to Chatroop yesterday? Because
we didn't.
He had a bad finish. He was down, only put in 1 lap and then pulled off. So I was curious, and I looked for him this morning and couldn't find him in time.
Trouble for Eric Jensen already, pulled off in a cut-through for a potential mechanical issue. So Eric Jensen, who gained some ground on Zach Lavoie, already having some problems in this race, and he is out of the car. Eric Jensen is done already, and we haven't even started this race. That is catastrophic for his championship fight.
It truly is, and along with that, just an absolute shame, because this is a track he goes really well at, and to see him have that kind of an issue early, that's just gut-wrenching.
And you see him, if he gets out of the car, you know it's going to be terminal, at least for this race. So, and potentially an axle problem, it's a drive issue of some sort. If it's mechanical, it's something that you can fix, but you can't fix the race you didn't start. You can't get in positions.
Exactly. And obviously, it's not something you can limping back to the pits and effect a change here because we're already out on the pace laps. And this additional pace lap is really important for the drivers, one, to help build heat into the tires, as well as to search for that little bit of grip in these cooler conditions.
Yeah, the goal here is just to get your tires, your brakes warmed up to operating temperature. These tires and these brakes, they need heat to work well. That's how they're designed. They're designed to be hot and sticky rubber to get to the road and really carry your car through the corners. I talked with Andy Smedegaard this morning. He said that the Bridgestone tire should be pretty sticky right from the get-go. The Falcon RT660 will be great right from the get-go. The Kumo V730 tire that many competitors are on, that one needs a little bit more temperature and is a little harder to get up to temp. So we'll probably see them weaving a little bit more, gaining some friction, clearing off all the clag off their tires from yesterday, just getting their tires prepped to go racing, because you head over Alpha here into turn number 1. There's going to be a lot on the line here as you turn into that first corner.
Well, and it's a blind approach, too. That's that little rise, and you come over it, so you got to get the car placed right, and when you're side by side, neither of you is probably exactly where you want to be. So you've got to make sure you've got good grip and good brakes, to get rid of a little bit of speed if you're not on quite the fastest line, and be able to make it through the corner. So that I love that run here, that run up through Alpha, as they call it, and then 1, that little blind approach, and you place the car where you think it's best, and you want to have your eyes on the flag stations at Alpha and 1, because you're not going to see if somebody loops it on the back side of that. So those corner workers or the corner marshals, that's big.
Rolling through turn number 6 now. That's one of those critical corners. You talked about the acceleration zones. What did you call it? The traction events. Traction events.
Yep.
Really 2 of them. The exit of turn 14, the exit of turn 6. That's where you're going to gain all your speed that you're going to carry into the next sections of the racetrack. Briefly before we kick off, let's also remind everybody that is new to GLTC how we run our races here, Greg.
Yes.
12 to 15 minutes. We'll throw a checkered when we want to throw a checkered in that window. But the goal here is absolutely clean racing. No contact is allowed. You can't shove your competitors out of the way. Bodywork is not fun. We race clean and hard here. And the goal is for everyone to come back, high five, and at the end of the day, share some beers and talk about how awesome it was.
It's about hard racing with respect.
Of course.
And that's what it is. And the biggest thing for me in this, and I love this rule because I've been a firm believer, if you put your car in a spot on the track, you've earned that spot. So if you have any overlap, the opposing driver then has to give you that space and not run you off at an apex or a track exit, anything like that. And it promotes fascinatingly fun side-by-side racing through multiple corners, and that's what it's all about.
Yeah, these racetracks are oftentimes paved in lanes, and the goal is if you're side-by-side, one guy picks one lane, one guy picks the other. That's how things roll here. Field doubling up and going racing. The pole sitter is Tom O'Gorman in the number 94 from ASM with Hawk Performance. As we head towards the start-finish gantry, John Raymond is holding the green flag, and here we go. Green flag flies, and we're racing in GRIDLIFE Touring Cup at Heartland Park in Topeka, Kansas for the finals.
And Swenson was going to tuck right up behind Thorne and then decided the better of it.
Flip.
But look at Thorne around the outside.
He got him. O'Gorman had a bobble, and he couldn't quite hang on. So Thorne leads the way down towards turn 3, and O'Gorman is going to try to hang tough on the outside, but a great run through the first couple corners for Robert Thorne.
And this is where I said this corner's long, it's got banking, and it climbs. And Tomo was thinking about running that outside line, and Thorne just eased over a little bit to dissuade him. But now Tomo gets the nose momentarily up the inside.
Here he goes. He's going to try the same thing again down here at turn number 5. Can he hang tough here? Turn 6 is a left-hander. Thorne will have the advantage. Here comes Andy Smedegaard down to the inside here as they hit turn 6 and 7, and now climb up towards the backstretch.
Boy, Smedegaard wasting no time jumping from his 5th starting spot up into 3rd, and makes you wonder what happened. There's a sizable gap already back to 4th spot right now.
Yeah, back there, I think, is that Austin Hurdle that is behind. Yes, it is. Is that Hurdle up to 4th place? What a start for him as they hit turn 9 now. That's that left-hand turn, and then they're going to head down to turn 10. Another great braking opportunity. Single file, string lining through here. Now one
3
car
cars.
Off.
There's
Woo!
3 of them that ran
4.
wide down there. Now 4. Now that was a little target fixation. I think.
They got it straightened out, though, as they hit turn 10. Here comes Thorne through the corner, and O'Gorman is right behind him. It is far from over here, Greg.
Yeah, and Thorne, for all of his skills, which are considerable, we know that, and the speed of that BMW, only 1 win this year, coming way back at the Midwest Festival at Gingerman, and it was a race he controlled beautifully from the front. So we'll see what happens here, but where is Swenson? Swenson right now is not up in that top group at all.
Yeah, where is Jeremy Swenson? I don't see him in this mix.
He was 12th, but he's just falling down the order. Something has gone awry with Swenson.
I have not seen him on the timing and scoring just yet. So they come up. Oh, there's Jensen stopped,
Yep.
But go back up to the front right now. It's ASM leading. Thorne, O'Gorman, Smedegard. There's the timing and scoring up now as we look down the order. And Swenson, it might be a timing related issue, but I didn't see the car physically either.
He was not in that top group. Oh, right there, Thorne running a little wide out of the very tight turn 5, dropping those lefts. But one of the nice things is you get off track here, the grass is really smooth, and if you just don't make any sudden moves, just straighten the wheel, let it have its head, ease it back onto the track, you really don't lose a whole lot.
Yeah,
it looks spectacular,
yeah.
but it's not that much of an effect.
Battle behind him as we go racing towards turn 8. That's Matt Walbaum and Austin Hurdle. Zach Lavoie following, singling out for turn 8 here, though, but Walbaum is approaching very quickly that big, heavy 370Z.
When you saw that Hurdle did not get way over to the left coming through turn number 8, which compromised his exit a little bit.
Car off
That's
at
got
9.
Walbaum looking to the inside. Ooh, they're going to be side by side here through 10.
Still side by side for position. Walbaum has the inside lane for the next corner, but Hurdle hangs tough. Can he keep the car here to 13? Walbaum squeezes through. Not quite clear, though.
Nope, and Hurdle stays put to the inside through 13 now. Key corner here, and rounding it up and coming out, and Eric Coutil is putting in a solid run as well.
Yeah, Coutil trying to gain a couple spots. Best lap of the race, Robert Thorne. Look at this, side by side, Lavoie, Coutil, Walbaum, and Hurdle. Look at this battle as they head down the front straight.
3 abreast through Alpha and up into 1. Finally, Coutil makes it stick and moves around, but Jason Saney on the move in that 33. He is flying up through the field. That's 8th spot, but runs a little wide. Coutil down to the inside.
Here comes Coutil side by side with Saney in his second ever GLTC race in that number 33 Porsche Cayman. Coutil clears him through turn 3.
Yeah, Coutil was talking to me last night a little bit about, his car is one of the lightweight, less powerful cars. And he said what happens, he said, with the tire choices that I'm running to maximize that, if I put the right size tire on the front, the rears don't last. And if I put a bigger rear on, then it runs the fronts off it. So he said he's really struggling to come up with the balance, but you cannot question the man's skills.
Oh, a little bit of a bobble there for, I think that was Lavoie out of turn number 6. He's going to lose a little ground on the car that he's battling. Matan Rosenberg squeezes by. Jeremy Swenson, mechanical, out. And remember, so did Smedegard yesterday. So this is a silver lining for Andy as they battle for the positions in the championship. They were 1 point separated coming into the weekend. They're going to be on much more even footing into race 3. That battle will continue. Here's Walbaum up the inside of Hurdle. They touch, and Walbaum spins in front of Coutil and back across the road.
Oh, and a nice save by Walbaum not to get it into the wall. And that spin was because he realized he was pushing into Hurdle and would hit him. And
I think he did bounce off him, and that's what spun the car out.
It was a tap instead of just plowing into him, because you could see that Walbaum immediately got off the throttle to try and save it. And, so, I mean, there's that respect. It's like, I'll sacrifice myself. I don't want to hit a competitor.
Yeah, Hurdle continues. Walbaum spins himself out. Just got in there too hot. The track's cool. It's hard to get grip today. Slid off the road to the inside. He will likely continue. That was pretty light contact. For the lead, though, Thorne has the advantage, but O'Gorman is still keeping him honest.
And it's early in this race, so to speak. So we'll see. That BMW's got good torque, but it's a little heavier. He's told me, Thorne said, I love the aero on this car here. So it makes it a little difficult down in that technical run between 10 and 14. But he's doing a nice job. But Tomo is really starting to come after him here. And for Smedegard, you see him dropping off. But you know what? They didn't have a warm-up this morning to see if that fix took, and if the alignment's still right. So Andy right now is driving a car that he just didn't have any time to really make sure everything was clicking right.
Look at the pull that Thorne's M3 gets out of turn 6. It drives away from Tomo on this particular section, but Tom's got the commitment here, right out to the edge, drops left side tires, pushing the limit. Tom's got pro racing experience and using every ounce of it right now. He has said this is the hardest and most rewarding racing series he's ever been in.
Yeah, I mean, at the sharp end, I mean, you think about Thorne. He used to race GT3 cars in World Challenge in the absolute top class. So the skill set here is phenomenal. Here's Coutil, and having a really good run now, sitting in the 6th spot. Saney is the car right up front. We'll have to see whether he's got anything there. But how about it, again, Matan Rosenberg, 7th spot. Kid is having a phenomenal weekend.
He's doing a great job in running down the 2020 season champion. Zach Lavoie's right in the mix, too.
Yeah.
If he gets in, this is top 10 shootout territory in this top 10 position. So Lavoie, Rosenberg, and Catil fighting for 6 as we go back to the battle up front.
And just keep in mind, the Jensen you see running in 10th, the 527, that's Eric's son, Jackson, in the Corvette, having a very impressive run here up into that top 10 and potential shootout category as well.
Through turn 3, O'Gorman leaning on the arrow on his S2000, trying to run down Robert Thorne. Big difference here. This is where Thorne's car struggles. It kind of flops around a little bit through turn 4. And look at Tomo. He's going to dive up the inside at turn 5. Squeezes the S2000 in side by side for the race lead, and he's got it.
Yep, he got Thorne just off a little bit, and Thorne, he had carried speed in, but by rule, he needed to open that wheel up. Couldn't just shut the door on Tomo, and that floated him a little wide. Tomo was through, but now we'll see whether Thorne can get in, and he really needs to get by Tomo before they get to 8. And I think Tomo's got just enough of a margin. It may not happen, but he's making up ground.
He is. It's 3 car lengths, maybe 2 as they head into turn 8. That front straightaway is a good spot for that M3 as well.
Ooh!
Wow, look at the speed he tried to carry through there.
Oh, he got a little loose at 8 and just hung onto it and threw it in there, but he wasn't able to get through on Tomo by the time they got to 10.
Whoa, wobble from Tomo. He's pushing right now, trying to put distance between himself and Thorne. He knows he's coming back on that front straight.
Well, they're exploring the limits of these tires on a cold track. And, when that's the magic. When you can find grip when the tires are cold or the track is cold, that's when you've got the gift. And believe me, folks, both these guys have it.
Here we go.
Oh, Thorne really opened the wheel up to be able to feed throttle here, and he's coming.
In the slipstream now.
Tomo's really defensive, isn't he?
He's trying his best here on the front straight. Thorne, if he can't get by him here, this might be it. Overlap now to driver's left, but over Alpha, he'll tuck back in behind, but Tom is so good through this fast-flowing turn 1 and 2.
Yep, big bump when you cross the drag strip there, so you straighten the car up a little bit. But look at Thorne close up as they enter turn 3 into the banking and that climb.
This is where Tom is going to gain some here. I think
Yeah.
Robert really struggles through this left-right transition, and now the distance goes back in O'Gorman's pocketbook here now as they head down to turn 5. And again, it's all about this run onto 6. Tom drops a tire again, but it's not slowing him down at all.
It's not, but look at Thorne, that time uncompromised through 5, which is a tight corner. The torque of the BMW, he made up a couple of car lengths into 6. This is closer than he was last time. And look at him roll some speed here. This is going to be interesting to see. I don't know that he's going to get him again by the time they get into 8. Here they fold into that. And watch Thorne. He really hustles that BMW here. This time, car's a lot more planted, but he's still got 2 car lengths, maybe 3 there at the exit. It's not going to be enough to do anything with Tomo heading into 10.
Yeah, so Tom's got the lead now. Thorne still right in tow, though. This still could be, very volatile as they get back to the front stretch again. And he's within 1 car length here. This is phenomenal stuff. Both of these drivers driving to the absolute limits of the machinery and their capabilities. Thorne is closer again than he was last time by. Can he get the launch here on the front straight?
Boy, he has that thing working way better in those twisty technical parts of the track here, 11, 12, 13. This is really close. Coming out of 14, closest he's been. He's right there again. See if he's going to be able to do anything. This is through Alpha. Now here's the climb up into 1. He pops much, much earlier, Kyle.
Here he comes. Drag race into turn 1. Again, he bails out there on corner entry to set up for the exit here. Turns in earlier and is going to try to squeeze out a little more speed, but Tom just carries so much through turn number 1.
Yeah, he just flows the speed through there. And I think what Thorne's doing, going to the outside, at that point, he realizes I'm not going to be able to make the pass, but he's trying to just force Tomo to tighten up the radius going into the corner and compromise his speed through it. And hasn't worked so far, but it's a strong idea. Watch him here. He comes out of this turn at BMW, gets the power down. Tom rolls more speed at the exit, but the BMW, well, this time not quite as much.
Oh,
Tomo,
big slide.
big lose moment.
Wow, that was a huge moment. He got a bunch of counter steer
again
there.
at
Here
the
comes
exit.
Thorne. Here he comes. Nose to tail through turn 8 now. Here comes Thorne. He's going to get overlap. He will. Side by side for the lead down the backstretch.
This is incredible. Now they're going to go side by side through and into the chicane here. Tomo at that point says, yeah, not a great idea. Thorne compromised, though, a little wide of the apex. Now he cuts back to the inside. Does Tomo? Does he make a move into 10?
on the brakes here. We saw Waldbaum have an issue trying this same move. Tom doesn't stick it down the inside. He's going to have to try it again. Thorne muscles his way back by the points leader and provisional champion O'Gorman, but through turn 11 and 12 now, O'Gorman's back on the bumper of the M3.
How many times have you seen Tomo make a mistake? It's incredibly rare, and it tells you how hard Thorne is pressuring him and how good Thorne is as well behind the wheel.
Here's Saney and Catil battling for 5th spot now. Eric, if he can finish 3rd or better on the weekend, he would finish top 10 in points with only 3 rounds as he scraps with this Porsche Cayman. You can't see these two cars race against each other anywhere else.
Ooh, a little tap there almost, coming out of 14. And you can see Catil had a little bit better run, and I think he expected that Cayman to launch a little bit more strongly.
White flag, and it's the final time around here at Heartland Motorsports Park for GLTC race number 2. The leader, Robert Thorne, has the advantage for now. O'Gorman is about 5 to 10 car lengths back and trying to close it back down, but man, Thorne had a really good run onto the front straight.
Oh, huge run, and that's going to be that traction event is going to be the strong suit of the torquey BMW power plant in that car. But here's the thing, Thorne also has set fast lap in this race, so if that holds, that's going to just sort of serve notice. But if he wins it, he goes into the shootout, obviously, but he's showing some pace. And this huge battle here for that final spot in the top 5.
Yeah, Saney and Catil having a great battle for 5th place. Entering turn 6 now. Catil's car was great through that first sector, but is it good through sector number 2? The Porsche, great launch off of turn 6.
This is that near flat out essentially run through 7, and Catil runs a little bit. He can flow more speed, but then you can see that power plant of that Cayman eases away right there. And how about Austin Hurdle with that welded together control arm at the back of the car, 4th, and he's a full almost 10 seconds clear of Saney and Catil. Catil really close again heading into 10.
All right, we're coming back to the checkers this time through. Catil, look at the speed he's trying to carry. That car hopping around everywhere, just hounding the back of the 33 through the final couple of corners. Checkered flag. Robert Thorne comes across the start-finish line, and Robert Thorne picks up his 2nd GLTC victory of 2022. O'Gorman finishes 2nd. Then Andy Smedegaard in 3rd. Austin Hurdle, what a great rebound for him. And then Saney and Catil. This is going to be a drag race to the line. You got your money on the Civic or the Porsche. It's going to go to the Civic by about a car length. Or excuse me, to the Porsche.
Porsche, just barely, yeah. And look who's right behind those guys. Matan Rosenberg, an absolutely superb run. Then Zach Lavoie in the 8th spot. Robertson up into 9th.
Great run. And hey, Scott Robertson's in the top 10 shootout. I can't wait to watch that. Here's Jeremy Boyson making his final couple moments around the racetrack here, battling Joel Morrison for position. Another Porsche Cayman, this time versus an S2000.
Ooh.
Last turn here. This is a V6 S2000, by the way. It'll be a more even drag race to the finish than you would think.
Well, and you can see Morrison really squared up 14 to get that thing rotated, get the power down as early as he could. But I think that Cayman's going to have just a little bit too much snort and hangs on there.
Julio
Great
Crispin,
battles everywhere.
Julio Crispin 22nd, Aronowskis right behind him. Brad Kasiba, Thomas Moss, Wes Penn, Savannah Little, and Robert Vierhout completes the first race for his weekend. But Robert Thorne, Tom O'Gorman, what an epic battle up front, and a very rare mistake from O'Gorman. You don't see him maybe twice a season, Greg.
Yeah, maybe is the key there, exactly. I'll tell you what, that run by Robertson, 14th into 9th, and Tony Marchev doing it again, his first ever weekend of racing, started outside of the top 10 and 17th, finishes 11th.
Oh.
He's probably passed more cars than Saney has.
I'd say at this point.
Impressive.
And Saney, what a great run. His first weekend, he's going to be in the shootout here. Again, pending results, everyone that's going to get selected is going to go to the dyno and get tested, make sure everybody's legal here. Again, it's power to weight, so it's very specific what weight your car has to be. So when everyone rolls off the racetrack, they're going to take the winner and a couple others. Just make sure there's a compliance check there. But O'Gorman will not win race 2 despite leading a handful of laps. Let's have a look at our race results here for GLTC race 2 as we watch Jensen get towed back to the paddock. Let's have a look at our results and kind of digest the results here. Now, Jeremy Swenson, down the order there is, look at Robert Thorne standing tall there. I think that's the first time he's been on this graphic all season because he didn't have this back at Gingerman when he won his other race. But Smedegaard on the podium, Hurdle, Saney, Catil, Rosenberg, Lavoie, Robertson, and Jackson Jensen top 10. Those are your top 10 shootout runners, and 11th through 20th. Have a look there. How about Boyson and Fiona Liu top 20?
Yeah, a couple of really good runs. She continues to impress. She continues to put that car, regardless of field size, she's fairly consistency up in to that top 20. And the thing about Thorne, you see that picture there, and he looks sort of professorial, doesn't he? But there is a spirit of fun that runs in him. He hopped into his drift car last night, which has all the lights that can flash, and was just doing laps of the paddock waving at people. So good to see him up front. Great drive. Great drive.
Cerise from FCP Euro is on pit lane with one of our finishers.
I'm here with Robert Thorne. Now, Robert, oh my God, that race was incredible. For everybody at home that doesn't know, 3 weeks ago, Robert Thorne took home the Pro Spec Formula Drift Championship as well as the FCP Euro Cup Contingency Program. What are you feeling right now?
Ecstatic. That was an awesome race. Of course, Tomo's a good teammate and one of the best out here. So to beat what's currently the fastest car in the series today, I'm so happy. That was a battle. Holy crap.
That was a huge battle. Now, you are kind of coming for blood this season. Is that your plan for the rest of the day, yeah?
Yeah, for sure. It's the last one of the year, and I want to win it. So
we're rooting for you, man. Fellow E36 driver. All right, guys, back to you.
All right, thanks, Cerise. And yeah, Robert, again, he's run really well all year long. His average finish 5.4. but only had one win up until this point in the season. So this is win number 2. They're hard to get, especially when Tomo's won 20 of them.
Yeah, well, and that's his point, isn't it? He just beat the fastest car in the series, and it's the car-driver combination, obviously. But Robert Thorne has immense skills, and he showed it today. He hounded a 20-time winner and, 22-time pole sitter into a little mistake.
Yeah.
That says a lot.
Again, it's all about that drive off of turn 6. We've talked about it. And I think it was actually 7 that the car got a little loose and wobbly. And I'd be interested to talk to Tomo and hear about what happened there. But I know he'll be frustrated with that because Tom's just ultra competitive. But he still ran an incredible race. Second place certainly is hard to get here. Andy Smedegaard, great rebound there. Now, let's talk about Swenson. Because remember, yesterday Swenson finished in second. And Andy was way down the order. Today, it's Swenson down the order, Andy up top. So right now, in terms of where they are in the weekend, they're going to be pretty darn close. But both of them are probably going to struggle for a chance at the podium in the weekend, which means that it's going to be really interesting to see who else can sneak up there. Could Eric Catil sneak into second on the podium with those guys kind of fumbling? What about Matt Waldbaum? He finished down the order after his slide, but still was able to gain some ground back. So there are lots of topics of discussion as we head into race 3, but we're not done with GLTC this morning just yet. We've got Time Attack coming up in a few minutes, and then we go to the top 10 shootout where the top 10 finishers from that race are going to re-qualify to set the grid for race 3.
Yeah, lots of different machinations here that are going to get played out. And if my math is right, we talked about Swenson and Smedegaard coming in here 1 point apart. Then with the swing with Jeremy finishing second and Andy getting no points. Now Andy finishing third, Jeremy getting no points. Should be 4 points difference here after this one. That's still remarkably close when you consider the number of races that have unfolded here, and to have points battles that close.
Certainly, and there's still lots to be decided. Up next, though, Track Battle Group A is on track here in just a couple minutes. We're going to take a very short break, and we'll be back with you in a few. Coverage of GRIDLIFE Finals is brought to you by Valvoline, the official motor oil of GRIDLIFE. And by Momo, made in Italy since 1964. FCP Euro, every part you buy is guaranteed for life. eBay Motors, let's ride. And Falcon Tires. The Falcon Azenas RT660 is the official tire of Club TR.
The more power you have, the more grip you have, the more you push the limits, the more stopping power you need. Get race-proven technology. Hawk Performance.
Hey, we still on this weekend for a little?
You know it. I'm in desperate need of some.
What about you, Jim?
No, my sister's getting the wedding. She's getting married, so.
When adventure calls, make sure you're ready to answer. Stable 360 ethanol treatment is specifically formulated for year-round use, so your engines will be ready when you are. Ready, willing, stable.
For those who don't settle when others do. For those who are set free by performance and believe innovation can take you anywhere.
Ed Vance here, and I'm at my favorite place again.
Sorry, did you say your name is Ed Vance?
That's me.
Like advance?
Crazy, right? And it just so happens he knows everything in advance.
Oh, you know the future? Did you know I needed 10W30?
No. I just know everything here in Advance Auto Parts, like where the 10W30 is.
So you don't know what I'll do next?
Actually, I do. You will be going to the oil aisle.
He's good.
He's Advance.
I spent a lot of time here.
He's here a lot.
This is how we advance.
We've been powering the American road since before it was paved. Our first breakthrough in motor oil was introducing it. And we've been reinventing it ever since. From the world's first high-mileage oil to the world's first synthetic blend. There are those who change with the times, and those who drive them. Valvoline, the original motor oil.
The Falcon Azenis RT660 is the enthusiast choice for ultra-high performance. Engineered for predictable handling and stability, the RT660 provides maximum traction both on and off the track. Your competitive edge has arrived with the Falcon Azenis RT660.
Into the speed trap for Ferris Cartoumi, 183, and sets a blistering new track record. Welcome back to Heartland Motorsports Park and GRIDLIFE's finals here in Topeka, Kansas. I'm Kyle Heyer, joined by Greg Kramer. It is a beautiful autumn morning here. Crisp air, but the sun is out, and we are ready to get back on the racetrack for TrackBattle Time Attack. Single lap runs with our 7 competition classes. Drivers trying to run for podiums and trying to run for track records here at Heartland Motorsports Park.
A number of which have already been obliterated in yesterday's running when it was cold, which makes great power, but it's also very windy. And right now, the weather, it's chilly outside. There's some sun out there, but that wind has died down. So you're not fighting a big headwind all the way in that run from 7 down through the chicane and into 10. So the potential is here for them to be able to go even quicker because it's still cool enough where they're going to like the power, but the track's warm enough where they're going to get some better grip.
Certainly. I think we're getting into that operational zone of the tires where it's going to be a very fast morning here. Let's talk about the track records we saw yesterday. Ferris Cartoumi on Unlimited smashed that record. He's down to the mid-132s in his 1,000-plus horsepower Corvette.
And to give you a little insight, I had a nice chat with him last night. And he said, I've never been here before. He said, so yesterday, he said, I was just exploring. He said, I had really old tires on and was just trying to learn the track a little bit. So he said this morning he feels this is when he's going to really be able to set sail. He's got the track figured out a little bit. He's going to put on the newer tires. It should be spectacular from Ferris.
Yeah, Ferris again, that car, 1,000-plus horsepower, twin-turbo V8 Corvette. That thing is ridiculous. 132.2 is the time he's trying to beat this morning. Then Jackie Ding leading in Street Mod, leading in the championship, leading this weekend at a 136.495. He's broken his record from last season already in that GR Supra from PhD Racing. And of course, we have a new driver here competing this weekend in an unlimited class Porsche Cayman. That's Tadas Karlinskis in the number 313 Cayman, and had a chat with him this morning, correcting the name pronunciation, so apologies there. Nick Kors, by the way, what a great weekend for him in the Street Mod Civic, up in second right now as it stands, just inched ahead of Mike Omick by 0.3 of a second.
Yeah, and I mean, look at how closely he is to an unlimited competitor, only 0.4 off. It tells you just how fast his Civic is and what a talent he is behind the wheel.
We also have the front runners in Falcon Club TR in this category. It's going to be just Dana Basinski, though. We've got Grant Davidson in heat number 2. That's grid order B. So Grant is currently leading in the Falcon Club TR class. All he needs to do is get on the podium. Right now he's in second, but that could change as we get later in the day. Here's a look at the skid pad up there, the inside of turns 4 and 5. We do have drift here this weekend. Not on the full course like we typically do here at GRIDLIFE, but still an outlet for the drifters to come skid with us here at Heartlands.
Absolutely, and it's fun to watch. The other battle that's really enthralling right now is in track mod. Andy Hollis has a 141.094 in his McLaren 720S, but Lally Neary in his Skyline GTR at a 141.294. Exactly 0.2 apart between those two track mod competitors. Doesn't get a whole lot closer than that.
It doesn't. He also told me that his top speed cresting Alpha, that first left-hand bend going up the hill, 160 miles an hour in that McLaren 720S. Let's have a look at the track map while we're at it. We'll talk about where Alpha is, because it's not a typical corner name. So if we have a look here at our 3D track map, Alpha is the first left-hand bend there after that checkered line there, the green arrows, that left-hand turn, that's Alpha. Then you head over to turn number 1, Greg, and kick off a 2.5-mile lap.
You do, and from the top, one climb, so at 1 is the highest point, and then you fall down through turn 2, and you cross the drag strip, so there's a pretty good bump. You got to get the car straightened out for that. Flow the speed through 2. Turn 3, all of the elevation you've dropped from 1 down into 2. You gain slowly as you climb with some banking, so you can really attack turn 3. 4 flows very nicely, but the 2 key corners, 6 and 14, those are the big launch points on the longer straights.
Certainly. Jackie Ding's on the paddock pit lane here with Cerise Taylor from FCP Euro.
Super street man, not super. All right, guys, I'm here with Jackie. We have a street mod record holder for the weekend. How are you feeling today? What's your strategy to stay in P1?
We got some new tires in the car, so happy to try those new Nankings out. I think we're going to drop at least half a second, if not more. We're turning all the power all the way up, and obviously giving Ferris behind us a good draft and help him warm up, you know?
Absolutely. Sounds good. Well, we're excited to see you out there. Guys, back to you.
Thanks, Cerise. Jackie saying he's going to go a half second quicker. Oh, boy, I can't wait for that. Is that going to put him in the 35s?
Yep.
It would.
That's impressive. And giving Ferris the draft to warm up the tires. He's talking about Ferris now. It runs Michelin's that take a little bit longer than normal for him to get him up to temp. But once they do, it's game over. He is so fast out there. So Jackie understanding that, having some fun with it.
Certainly. And Ferris was in line behind, and about 3 minutes until we launch Time Attack Group A here, so just hang tight as we finish some track cleanup around Heartland Motorsports Park. Other drivers to mention, Jason Kanakri in the 106. That's a street mod car. That is another McLaren 720S. And if you're talking about Andy Hollis and Kanakri, both running 720Ss, they're about 0.3 apart. So that's how close those drivers are. And Andy Hollis, that speaks a lot to Jason Kanakri, because Andy Hollis, of course, multi-time autocross champion, and he's been around the ringer a couple times. He knows what he's doing in that 720.
Very accomplished driver, no question. So for Kanakri, that is a great reference point for him, and currently he's on top of it. That says a lot. You're right.
other battles to watch. The street class battle is absolutely thrilling. Half a second between Stan Feingold and Josh Halka. Josh is pretty well in front in terms of the season championship in street, but in terms of the trophy this weekend, Feingold has the advantage for now in his Lancer. Halka in his Impreza just behind. And then you have to look all the way down to Charles Miller at a 1:43.6. That's a couple seconds back in third place on the bottom step of the podium for now.
And Street GT, it's Steve Luca in the number 350 Mustang. His best time at 1:42.924. And he is the only of the Street GT cars that is in this first group, which tells you just how strong he has been at this stage. Pretty impressive. And then you mentioned the Club TR, Dana Baczynski at 1:43.4 in a BRZ. That's flying.
Yeah, it's got that K-swap engine. You see it rolling off pit lane now, the orange and white livery. And Dana, again, just fighting Grant Davidson all season long. Rear-wheel drive versus front-wheel drive. They are fierce competitors. Grant had that windshield break yesterday, or on Thursday rather, when the hood flew up and hit the windshield, broke it. Didn't get to run until late yesterday. Put in a lap time that puts Grant second. All Grant has to do is finish on the podium, and he will win the Falcon Club TR category this season.
And as the cars make their way out, obviously you've got a mix of different classes and categories. Cars make their speed in different ways at different points on the track, and it's a sizable field. And you know, these run groups are not based on class. It's just based on your speed in the previous sessions. So if you start off and you've got a problem and you're in the third session, and then you find pace, you'll be up in that top session, and that's pretty cool too. And I think I just saw a Viper go out there as well. That says a lot.
Nick Anderson Motorsports out of Liberty, Missouri. 2003 Dodge Viper Competition is what that car is, and it fits into the unlimited category, so he's out there as well. But again, it's just so hard to compete with Ferris's ridiculous build. But we'll see if Ferris can do the same as he did yesterday and break the track record. We'll keep an eye on Nick as well towards the tail of this group.
They used to run a series for these cars, the Viper Competition Coupe, and it was called the Dodge Viper Cup. And make no mistake, these things are monsters. V10s is huge power, also great brakes, pretty decent aero. In the right hands, they get around here very, very well. It's great to have one in competition here.
He's got another unlimited competitor just ahead of him, Andreas Bertulis in the 171. That's that Lexus RCF, the black, very mean-looking Lexus, and that thing is wild behind the wheel, I'm sure.
It's got to be. I mean, it's got to be such fun to drive, but demanding as well. There's a look at Jackie Ding as he's starting to ramp it up here. It's going to be interesting to see when those first times start to pop up where he falls into place. I think that's Ferris right behind him.
Yep. And I always talk about PHD Racing and their development on this car because they have taken the Supra to a new level of performance. I always talk about a couple of years ago, they had a trunk-mounted rear wing on this car that was bending the trunk off of the car. So they had to, that weekend, basically drill holes through the trunk and chassis mount the wing to make sure that they weren't going to bend the car apart because how much aero they're making. So PHD, they do all this aero development and really have developed this chassis. The internals on this engine are essentially stock. Bigger turbo, all sorts of other changes, but this B58 BMW sourced engine in this Supra is incredibly strong.
Well, and it says a lot that when you add all the turbos to it, and you're still running stock internals. And the car, I've been doing a few of these now. I've never seen one problem with this car with all of that additional power being pumped through it. That says a lot. And when you look at the rear wing, folks, if you're new to motorsports and you see some cars that have the wing just resting on top of the struts, and you see those struts come up and attach to the top of the wing, reason for that is the actual downforce is made on the underside of the wing. It's like taking an airplane wing, flipping it over. So under that wing, it speeds the air up, creates a low pressure area that kind of sucks the car down. And so when you've got the struts mounting on the bottom side of the wing, it disrupts that airflow. So a few years ago, some engineers figured out, let's run the struts up over the top. Big wiggle there for Ding. Run the struts up over the top, clean the airflow up to the underside of the wing, and it's just that bit more effective. He is hustling it.
Yeah, I think the tire temperature isn't quite there yet as he rolls through turn 12 sideways. That's the Jackie Ding way. They call that the Ding Fling through turn number 12. Up onto the front straight. Here we go with Jackie Ding. Can he break his own track record he set yesterday? It is a 1:36.495 across the line for Ding. 1:36.864, not faster on lap one.
And Khartoumi on his warm-up lap at a 35.6, so he's getting ready to unleash something here in the next couple of laps. I think in the next lap would be the one for Ding if his tires, certainly with the way he was thrown up, and he eases out and just lets Khartoumi go. So now he didn't want to impede Ferris here. Ding going to take one lap to just ease back a little bit and then do another attack lap. But look at Ferris throwing the car around. All that massive aero on that car.
And into turn 6 now, or 5 rather, making that right-hander down towards 6 and 7. And then 6, this is this critical corner where you're going to lean on that power to drag you up the hill and then launch you down the backstretch.
Late apex as much as you can when you've got that level of power in the car. Get those front wheels straight and get on the throttle here. Kick that 1,000+ horsepower into play here. And now into the chicane, just flowing immense speed. Check up a little bit here. Used a lot of that inside curve. You can see that little plume of dirt fly up in the air. Now into 10. And this is where it'll struggle a little bit on handling just because it's a bigger car, just size-wise.
And set up very stiffly as well, so it can tend to bounce around a little bit at lower speed when it doesn't have the aero pressing the car into the road. Into 13 now, and then back into 14 to start another run onto the front straight.
Here he goes, making the launch. What's he going to do? He had a 32.2 was his best time, and that is a record here. Is that going to get 33.7 on this one?
Well, improved over his previous lap this session, but comes across the line, and he will likely go again. He's still on it, looks like it, through turn 1 and 2, still hauling the mail. And then into turn 3, the aero will really help in this corner. You've got banking and a high speed to carry you through.
Exactly, and where that aero really is going to play is obviously in that really fast 8-9. It's sort of referred to as a chicane. It's almost more like a quick S's. It doesn't have that chicane feel to it at all. And here he works through. And the thing is, with the wings that big, you don't have to have 180 miles an hour for the aero to kick in. That's going to kick in 60, 70 miles an hour. His average speeds around here are over 100, so he's into it frequently.
Up onto the backstretch again where this car is happiest. High-speed transitions and high-speed corners. This is where this car really loves to lean on that stuff. Through turn 8 now, the right-hander, then at turn 9, the left. Whoa, Greg's a big plume of dust there through turn 8, using every inch of the road, and now down towards turn 10.
Yeah, he had a little bit of a wiggle there, and that's not going to help his time. The other spot here is right here. Were I would flow that out a little bit more. Compromise, that's the entrance to 12. Give that up a little bit. Carry that speed. Don't try and tighten that corner up quite as much. And I think you might see even a little bit more speed here. It's going to be interesting to see with that little wiggle at turn 8, what it does in terms of his time as he hops on it here. When that car comes by, the sound is amazing.
Across the board.
30.9.
New track record. Heartland Motorsports Park, unlimited class 130.964. Ferris Khartoumi gets it done. What a lap.
Unbelievable. And imagine what it would be without that little wiggle.
Even faster.
It's just, you see somebody that drives that fast a lap, and there was just a little mistake there. That just is incredible.
I wonder if we could find Dana Basinski. It's an orange BRZ on track. There's Jason Canacri, by the way, one of the street-modified runners in the McLaren 720S. 140.653. That's actually an improvement over yesterday, so that's a good run for Canacri.
Yeah.
There's Ryan Dussix, and there is Dana Basinski, our second-place runner in the championship in Falcon Club TR. Now, I wanted to mention Dana here because he's kind of the lone Club TR competitor here in Group A because the split of the groups happens right at the top of the podium here. So Dana's here, and then the second-place runner in the weekend, Grant Davidson's in heat number 2. Dana's best time of the weekend so far has been a 1:43.406 across the line for Dana. Is it going to be a pickup? It is not that time. Well, he didn't cross the line quite yet. Not an improvement that time through as we go back to Ferris as he continues to roll around.
See, it looks like, he's not on one here at this stage.
Andy Hollis picked up a bunch of time. A 1:39.947 is a full second of pickup from yesterday.
That's really fast. Really quick, and Coors at a 140.4. That's a little off by about a second of what he ran yesterday.
Here's Nick Anderson again in the number 918 Anderson Motorsports 03 Dodge Viper competition. And this is not going slow either, a 140.7 in a car from 2003.
That's impressive.
Race cars used to be a lot scarier in 2003 than they are now.
Yeah, it was a lot of raw power, and you just have to get up on the wheel and handle them here as we have a look at Hollis.
Looks like he's on a cool down right now after his best lap of the weekend by over a second. And hearing that maybe he had a spin, maybe looped it. But we'll bring that. Well, he's going to stay out on the racetrack and go again. Something about getting your confidence back and going back out and going again.
Well, one of the things with track battle and time attack style racing is when you really uncork a lap and you are absolutely on the edge and everything, you slow down and you need a lap or two to just quit shaking. Right. And it's just an adrenaline thing. It's not a fear or whatever, but you get into a zone and you just complete that lap and you're just pinging is the only way to put it. And it's all right. I need to just take some deep breaths, because it's amazing how you don't realize till after you've had a run like that I can hold my breath for 2.5 miles.
Right. All right, here's another look at the number 313 that Porsche Cayman in the unlimited category. Karlinskis behind the wheel and a 139.235. And that is not quite a pickup from yesterday. Around a 139 flat yesterday as his best time on the weekend. But mid-engine Porsches, what a pleasure to drive these cars. Such well-balanced machines. And I think certainly at some of the lower trim levels, a value in terms of their performance. I think they really shoot above their weight. You can opt these things into oblivion, but I think there's, especially used, Caymans are really good values.
They are, and they're great performance cars, and they're balanced. Yes, there are cars out there with more power, but again, you look at the performance over a lap, and the Caymans, because of their balance and the grip that they generate, they'll often be a lot quicker, or comparable or quicker than cars with a lot more power around a lap. And that really tells the tale, and it depends on, all right, do I want something with a lot of grunt, or do I want something that I really have to pedal in the corners? And horsepower is great, but to me, it's the speed you carry into, through, and out of corners. That's where the excitement is.
Also, just looks awesome.
Well, that too.
It looks great.
Just phenomenal lines.
For just classic sports car drawing on this thing as they roll through turn 14. Karlinskis fires up the rear tires on the Cayman and will come across the line and try to improve in the unlimited category, running behind Khartoumi by 9 seconds in the same class. That's what we're talking about here. Karlinskis, no pickup that time through. Nick Kors, again, you mentioned in that Civic, a little bit off from yesterday, but still kind of knocking on the door. Mike Amick, by the way, in the number 6, a 140.9. And he is also off by about a second as we go back to Conakry in the street-modified 720S. Now, what is his pickup from yesterday? A 140.7 now to a 140.6, so a 10th pickup for the number 106.
And remember, he was quicker yesterday than Hollis, and Hollis is the one who's got the pace right now up in the 4th spot in terms of time over Conakry at a 139.9 for Hollis, and that's a big gain. That's like 1.2 seconds from yesterday, so Hollis has really dialed it up.
Certainly. Now we got both 720Ss on track together. These are in different classes. The black one street modified, the orange one track modified.
What would be the difference then between those cars?
I think it depends on really mostly tires in that scenario. Now,
gotcha.
Andy is on...
Oh, and Conakry loops it right in front of Hollis coming through turn 7.
Look out. There's a difference in your grip level there. The Goodyear Supercar 3R tires that Hollis has. Now, he's on old Goodyear tires, but again, depending on how the tire classification works, that'll put you in a different category. And tire width as well, how wide you want to run your tire. That's really the biggest limiting factor in street modified lap times is if you could run a bigger tire, they would, but they're just out of rules and regulation there. But Andy Hollis going to throw away that lap, have to jump on the binders for Conakry as Dana Basinski's right by. Now, here's the crazy thing. So Basinski's best time so far this weekend, a 143.406, is only 3 seconds shy of the 600, 700 horsepower McLaren 720S and a K-swap Honda-powered BRZ.
Yep.
That's crazy.
It is, and it gives you a solid idea of just how track-tuned these TR cars are, the Club TR machines are, and that's essentially very close to what runs in the GRIDLIFE Touring Cup, and it just tells you how evolved the cars are. They don't have monster power, but the suspensions are so tuned and dialed that they can really hustle through the corners.
So yesterday, Tom's 140.9 that he ran in qualifying, that would put him 8th place in this Track Battle A group in a car with 200 wheel horsepower. To give you an idea of how fast GLTC cars are, 9th place out of all the cars here this weekend. That's really insane.
It is, and it really speaks to, one, how, as I said, how well developed the suspensions are in the cars. And then, there's a lot to do with the pilot there, too. And there was a guy named Russ Wiles, I'm talking 20 years ago, who used to run in SCCA solo competition and won I don't know how many national championships in the C-Stock class. As we take a look at the results here. And he would oftentimes get fast time of day over modified stuff, over shifter. I mean, it was incredible. And it was just, he knew how to flow speed. It's that simple.
Well, nearly 6 seconds faster than anybody else is Ferris Khartoumi. A good look at the rest of the order there. Dana Basinski trying to close back in on the best time of his weekend at a 44.4, but he's about a second off of that. Andres Bertulis, about 2 seconds off this morning. Dalton Klein, don't think he picked up either. Now, the conditions this morning I thought would be as good as yesterday because it was a little damp at times yesterday, but it doesn't seem like we're going any quicker than the optimal conditions from Friday.
Yeah, there's a couple of cars that have picked up a little bit of speed, but I mean, the reference point there would be Jackie Ding, right? Because he had that time from yesterday at 1:36.4, and he said, all right, I got fresher tires on, we're going to turn it up and go full boat, and instead of that 1:36.49, he turns a 36.8. So that's indicative of maybe it was, and it's, I think it comes down to yesterday morning at this time, it was a lot colder. And that just means much more dense air for the engines.
Time Attack Group B is coming up next, and at the pointy end of that, we're going to see Charles Miller in the number 55 making his return to street class here in his Mitsubishi Evo. Then it's going to be Grant Davidson from Club TR, who is the leader in that championship. Westergaard, Magnussen, Hendricks, Muse, the rest of the front of the order there. Evan Weeder is in the mix in Club TR. Mike Coons in street, Jerry Liu in street mod. We're kind of jumping down the order here in terms of raw pace, but still at the pointy end of a couple of our classes. When we get into Group C, that's kind of the middle ground where everyone's just kind of fighting for mid-pack in their class. Then Group D, of course, we have Falcon Sunday Cup to look forward to, which is one of my favorite categories. Just 25-to-1 power to weight, basically Honda Fits, Mazda 2s, Ford Fiestas, essentially stock with suspension brakes and tires, Falcon RT660s. That's all you have to do to be in that class and run fast.
It is the bang for the buck category. There's no question about it. And the interesting thing is, even though he's in a different run group, you look at Grant Davidson, his time compared to Dana Basinski so far, only 0.4 off. So if he can find a little bit here, he's going to be able to ramp that up a little bit. And another guy to keep an eye on here, Evan Weeder, a guy who's been impressive. But I've been watching Mario Marone, and he has put up some laps this weekend as well. So it's going to be interesting to see whether anybody finds something.
Yeah, kind of a similar build to Evan Weeder. Both front-wheel drive EG Civics with similar-looking aero on those cars. So not exactly clones of each other, but pretty darn close, as now the Group B cars head onto the racetrack, led, of course, by the silver number 55 Evo of Charles Miller. Grant Davidson in the Acuity Integra. This is a front-wheel drive Club TR car. Now, this is an interesting stat because last year we had all of our competition classes here, no front-wheel drive in Club TR last year. So every lap Grant Davidson runs, if it's quicker than his best this weekend, he's resetting the front-wheel drive Club TR record because there wasn't one to reset, so he's making them now.
Well, I think that's a good point that we haven't really mentioned is you've got your category records, unlimited, street mod, street GT, all that. But within those, you've got separate records are kept for all-wheel drive, front-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive, right?
Yes. So the podiums in the weekend, the trophies are given just across the class, unlimited, track mod, the fastest no matter your drivetrain. The records are kept individually. For front-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, rear-wheel drive. And I don't think we've ever had a four-wheel drive scenario. I think that would just fall in the all-wheel drive category. But that's how the records are kept, just because statistically it's important to separate those things because they are fundamentally different, especially when we get to wet record keeping, which we've had a couple of times this season. Wet records, certainly the all-wheel drive cars will have a distinct advantage there. The front-wheel drive cars will have a distinct advantage there over rear-wheel drive. So that's why we keep those records separate. But the podiums, drivetrain doesn't matter. It's just fastest 3 in your class. So Charles Miller warming up here. Again, the weather, as the sun beats down, the ambient temp hasn't come up all that much, but the track is going to absorb that heat and energy. The subsurface, again, the ground below it will soak up some heat as well, but it'll also retain the cold a lot from yesterday. So you have to wait for the track to come up, but it will actually come up faster than the ambient temp will, obviously. So I think the the track might slow down throughout today.
I think that's going to be the case. And what that really is just referred to as track evolution. And sometimes tracks will get faster as a weekend goes away, depending upon what the grip conditions were early. Sometimes it'll lose a little bit of grip as it gets warmer. And, the higher the sun gets in the sky, the more direct the angle, the more acute the angle onto the track. And that's when you really start to heat that track surface. When the sun's low in the sky, obviously it's a much more shallow angle, so the track doesn't absorb quite as much. But as it starts to move up, and we're getting into that realm now, this track's going to definitely warm up.
Yep. Spectators lined up trackside here watching the action all the way around this 2.5 mile 14-turn facility as cars come across the line to start their laps. And in the background, there's Evan Weeder in that Acuity EG Civic. There's a good look at Derek Muse in the 266. And that's a Nissan 370Z. That car and driver.
A little wiggle there.
Little wiggle.
And you've talked to a number of these track battle drivers, and many of them have said, in their opinion, this is one of the best track battle tracks they've ever driven, right?
That was the kind of predominant consensus coming out of 2021 is, I didn't know this place was this awesome. This is the best time attack track. I heard more than one person say this. And I think it's because of the flow of the racetrack. It has many different kinds of corners, but you just carry so much speed. And I think it was just the fact that it was surprising. No one really talks about this place as a time attack track. You hear, of course, with our friends over at Global Time Attack, you talk about Circuit of the Americas. You talk about places like the F1 runs where you got their style of qualifying where they essentially are running shootout style, Bathurst qualifying. Those are great time attack tracks, time attack formats, but Heartland Park in the middle of Topeka, Kansas, you wouldn't really think about it like that, but everyone came out shocked, surprised, and happy that this place is as fun as it is.
Well, and I think one of the reasons for that is the fact that this track was relatively recently repaved, and you don't get brutally cold winters here where you get heaves and that sort of thing. And so what you notice, folks, is as you look around the track, when you're on the track surface proper, you don't see much patching or anything. So the pavement is consistent all the way around the track, which means the grip is consistent all the way around the track. And for, when you're out there on an absolute flyer lap where it's all about speed, you're not worried about racecraft or anything like that. It is all about speed. You want grip that you just know no matter what corner I'm in, it's going to be the same.
Yeah, there's Peter Granberg having a little off at turn 10. He had an issue, I can't remember what it was. It was an electrical issue or a fuel issue at Lime Rock Park, but had a similar scenario at Alpine Horizon as well. So he's been fighting that K-Swap BRZ just a little bit, but when he's not fighting it, it's very, very fast. On track there is a Mustang that I haven't seen a lot this weekend. Is that the number 218? Indeed it is. Matt Thompson at Story City, Iowa, in 2011 Ford Mustang, competing in, one car way off track there.
Setting up a large plume.
And Thompson is in the track modified class with that Ford Mustang. So Miller, we saw the purple highlight as he came across the board. That was the best lap in this session, but it's not better than his best time yesterday, which was a 43.6. As we look at a Radical, we saw this car a bunch yesterday. This is the 654, I believe. Nope, that's the Ford Focus RS driver. I was looking for an unlimited class car. Off the number, the 73, excuse me.
That's it.
Super Unlimited.
Super Unlimited, yeah.
James King out of Liberty, Missouri, 2009 Radical SR3 RS.
Fair amount of downforce in those, not really huge in terms of power. So, launching out of 6 there, relative to other cars, it's not going to be quite as good, but he doesn't slow down much anywhere.
No, Charles Miller, fastest again in the session, but a 43.648 is about 200 slower than yesterday, so still kind of inching away at it. Grant Davidson, a 44.4. That's about 0.6 off his best yesterday. So we're still kind of just knocking on the door of breaking records and getting up in the mix here. And just for context, remember that Charles Miller is not leading in the street category. He is third right now, as Stan Feingold and Josh Halka were in Group A earlier this session.
A Lancer and an Impreza versus, as you pointed out, Miller's also in a Lancer. So not hugely far off of them, but enough that he's in this second run group.
You see a lot of all-wheel drive in street, and I think it's just the way the power rules are, the grip rules. You end up with all-wheel drive really being the primary battle. We have seen some front-wheel drive cars. Most recently, back at Lime Rock Park, we had a front-wheel drive Civic that was up in the mix competing for spots. So I think front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive, they have the possibility of competing. It's just, I think right now the best mousetrap is the all-wheel drive vehicles at the moment.
Well, and obviously, you know, yesterday in the really cool conditions, that all-wheel drive was going to be beneficial because, and again, if you get it set up just right, where you've got this very minor little loose at the end when you go to hard throttle, it just helps that car pivot a little bit when you get through the corners and really get the hammer down. And with all the wheels driving, it's just going to offer you a little bit better grip.
Here's Evan Weeder in the 531. Now, for those that don't remember, a couple years ago, I think it was back in 2020, Evan Weeder had a car that he ran, another EG Honda Civic, and he had a catastrophic accident at Gingerman Raceway when a car behind him lost its brakes and drove into the passenger door of his car at turn 10B at Gingerman. It was a really gnarly accident. He had a roll bar in the car that prevented the whole side of the car from caving in, but despite that, huge significant damage. Chassis was a write-off. He pulled a lot of the parts off that car, and with the help of the community pitching in to get him a new rolling chassis, built this car a couple of years ago and is now back competing at the pointy end of Falcon Club TR. So quite the story there. It's been a couple of years, but when I saw that car come back on the rollback, it was shocking how big of a hit it was. It was a Camaro that lost brakes, slid out of control, and just absolutely obliterated the passenger side of that car. So one of those scary reminders that racing and time attacking can be dangerous, but I think for Evan, it's in the past now, and it's all focused on moving forward.
Well, I've said it for many years. One of the best weapons a driver has is a short memory. And, you know, literally, you've just got to be able to take that, compartmentalize it, and say, all right, that's really not part of my thinking process at all right now. He needs to find a little bit of speed to get to where he was running yesterday at a 144.7 yesterday, and thus far he's at a 144.7 yesterday, and now he's at a 147. So there's more to come from Mr. Weeder.
I think so. And I wonder how much the track conditions changing affects front-wheel drive versus rear-wheel drive, or is that, you think, a pretty even spread between the two?
I think it can be a little bit more of an issue for front-wheel drive, simply because you ask for so much from a front-wheel drive car out of those front tires. You know, it's not just the braking and the turning, but now you're adding the acceleration as well, and it can torture those fronts just a little bit. So, you know, you would think if a track starts to get a little slipperier, front-wheel drive, like it would be an asset in the rain, is going to help. But when you're asking so much out of those tires as well, you can run them off a little bit faster. So it's all a matter, I think, of just hitting that sweet spot at the right time.
I think so. There's another look at the 218 car. That is our track-modified competitor, Matt Thompson.
Love the sponsorship on the car, the Department of Boost. That's fabulous.
Well, that explains why it's in track mod and not street GT, I'd imagine.
There you go. Yeah.
Grant Davidson looks like, actually, Alex Westergaard is the driver that just snuck up into the mix. The street modified S2000 at a 143.815. Now for Westergaard yesterday, a 144.17 was his best, so he improves. So did Charles Miller, who reset his personal best last time around. We saw the purple wipe, 143.323 by 0.3. That's an improvement for the number 55 car.
Well done.
And down the order, how about Corey Ross in the BMW at a 144.7? Ross was a 145.8 yesterday, so a pickup for the track-modified number 437, that orange 437 on your timing screen. Jerry Liu at a 145.5. Was that a pickup for him? Not quite, 0.3 slower. Hendricks in the 347 was a 145 flat. That's a little slower than yesterday.
Oh, and I'll tell you, a guy who's made a nice gain as well is Brent Schneekloff, the number 258, the street all-wheel drive Lancer. Yesterday, his best time was a 47.3, and he has knocked that down to a 46.8, so he's found about a half a second.
Wow.
So good gain for him.
Yeah, Schneekloff out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, that 06 Lancer. As we get another look again at the 218 of Matt Thompson. Past traffic on the entry to turn 8. It's a tight entry there. The track is not super wide in that particular area, and a gnarly bump to navigate. Actually, that was rolling into turn 10, rather, but navigating here nicely. Needs to beat his previous best time in this session of a 147.071 if he wants a real good shot at going quicker than yesterday. On to turn 14, and now it's throttling up. Mustangs like this part.
Oh, yeah, that's one of those big launch points. We call them traction events, where you got to get that power down to the back. See if he made any improvement on that lap as he flashes through.
Needed to go better than a 47, and it is still a 47.071, which is an improvement from yesterday. Here's a look at Drew Turner, by the way. We haven't seen Drew around in a little while. This very clean S2000, the Def Motion car out of Murfreesboro, Tennessee. And it's been a little while since we've seen Drew in the mix here, but here he is battling up in contention for a top 5 in Falcon Club TR. Maybe not quite podium ready, but very, very close.
On the cusp, as they say.
The 340, is that a 1 or a 7? The 347, that's Hendricks out of Belvedere, Illinois, a 2013 Corvette, who's currently 6th overall in this session. And in terms of Street GT, I think there was one driver ahead of him. And then make that 2, Kyle Magnuson was ahead of him yesterday as well. So Hendricks needs to improve to better than a 144.364 to pick up any spots in Street GT. And Magnuson a little slower today in the number 570 car. Has not yet matched his time yesterday in his Premier Auto Porsche Cayman out of Sioux Falls, South Dakota. A couple Sioux Falls residents here this weekend. And there's Jerry Liu out of the PhD Racing Camp. That is the yellow Toyota Supra, the 226. Up in the mix, 7th overall in this session at a 45.5. And that is, again, 0.3 off his best from yesterday.
Looking at the couple of the cars out there, the 310 of Coons yesterday in the Impreza and Street, 145.2. He's at a 144.5. So he's found something there. Westergaard as well in the Street mod. S2000 at a 144.1 yesterday. He's down into a 43.8. So we are seeing some relatively rapid times. Take a look at the 74 of Grant Davidson, the Club TR Integra had a 43.8 yesterday. It was a 43.83, and he's had a 43.81. So by a couple of hundreds, but improvement is improvement.
Yeah, it's awful close there,
yeah,
Grant Davidson to improving. And again, Grant doesn't need to win the weekend in order to win the Falcon Club TR Championship. Just needs to get on the podium. He is there right now, as is Mario Marone as it stands at the moment. So that's what he's focusing on. He doesn't need to beat Dana Basinski this weekend, although it'll be a huge tip of the cap to Dana Basinski if he can beat Davidson. Now, talking about lap times, though, Dana's best time is a 43.4, so we're within a half a second now with Davidson's times being better than Dana. So this is going to be a really good fight all day long. I wish they'd be in the same group so we could watch them head-to-head.
Yeah, they might be. You know, the next run group, depending upon how things slot out, hopefully they will be, and it'll certainly be compelling to have them absolutely heads up in the same session if that can happen here.
Yeah, Jerry on it right now. Jerry Liu in that 226 Toyota GR Super. Looks like he might have bailed out and slowed down just a touch.
It's just about 0.3 off of where he was running yesterday.
Yeah. Jerry out of Glenview, Illinois. It's a 2021 GR Supra. Here's a new GR model. This is the 2022 GR86 out of Toyota's stable, paired up with the BRZ, one of, I think, the modern legends of just simple rear-wheel drive, front-engined sports cars, and Fez Baba running that right now and working on his Falcon Club TR weekend. And again, the FRS, the BRZ, the 86, the GR86, whatever you want to call it, it was the first new car in a long time that got people excited about cars again.
And I've noticed when you wander the paddock, you walk by that car, oftentimes I see you just stop, look, pause for a minute, wipe away a little bit of drool, and continue on.
Well, it's just, I think
you
it's
love
important.
Those. I understand.
I mean, I think it's important to have cars in the world that people can buy new, that are affordable, that have performance potential or are just fun to drive, right? We talk about performance potential. I'm not talking about a V8 where you can smash the gas and do 0 to 100. That's cool and all. That's great. And for some people, that that does the job. But I'm not going to yuck your yum, as Tom O'Gorman would say. But to get a good handling car, that used to be easy. Back when in the 90s, we were talking about this. DJ Alessandrini, Tom O'Gorman talked about it on their podcast. In the 90s, there were lots of cheap cars that handled well. They were lightweight. That's not really a thing anymore. I mean, if there are cheap cars, you don't want them. They're not cool anymore.
Yep, exactly.
And while I'm not going to say it's a cheap car by any stretch, it's certainly not expensive. It's also not, quite where the level of, the old Honda Civics were real cheap cars. But again, great performance potential. The first generation cars, pretty weak engine, but they've sorted that problem out with this new generation. And really, I think they're going to be very popular track cars as more and more people get a hold of them. They're just hard to get right now with everything else.
And it really comes down to being relative, doesn't it? You can spend a ton of money and get a car that's massively high performance, but if you don't have that kind of wherewithal to have a car that's in that relatively affordable window that lights you up a little bit, is rare, and it's nice to have.
And I think Subaru and Toyota deserve some credit for still building cars like this.
Absolutely.
Honda did. They called it the S2000, one of the best cars, I think, of all time.
Yep.
But they're not making it anymore. And now I know that there's some new announcements and there's electrification and all that's coming. But I think Toyota and Subaru building that car in today's market, I think everyone owes them a thanks for producing that car.
Yes.
Muscle cars are even getting rarer and rarer, and Dodge switching over to electrification soon, and the Camaro and Mustang, I think, are really the last two cars that you can get V8 manual transmission, rear-wheel drive, and at least in the U.S. So you have to appreciate these cars while they're still getting built the way that they are.
You do, and obviously we understand there's definitely a need to go to electrification,
of course,
and all of that. But this country was founded on car culture.
Yep,
and there will always be a place for some high-performance cars. And there may come the day when you don't see a lot of them on the road, but you still want to have them to be able to come out and do it on the track. That's where you're going to live viscerally, right?
Yep.
As things evolve. And it's nice to have them, and it's bred into us. And this is one of my favorite cars here.
Yeah,
no question.
This is the 736 cars. We move into Time Attack Group C. This, again, is one of my favorite cars, too. Cody Smith and his Oldsmobile Cutlass. It's a 1985. And we talk about, old cheap cars and making performance potential. This is a car that you would have looked at, I still look at, and say, how is there performance potential? Cody Smith has essentially milked it for all it's got in terms of the performance.
Exactly.
and done as much as he can to make this car perform. I don't know why the decision was made to run this car versus any other, but I'm thankful that he has chosen it. And he's really putting it to the test running in street modified. But cool entries. I mean, we see this in Touring Cup with people running pickup trucks and minivans and all sorts of things. Running an Oldsmobile Cutlass and street modified when the pointy end of the class is Supras and S2000s. This is a brave pick, but I really am happy for it.
I think the reason, the answer to that question of why run this is why not? I mean, it's obviously a bit of an engineering challenge, to take that kind of car and turn it into something that's really going to be drivable. And he's worked diligently at it. And, when he first showed up, the car had all kinds of body roll and all that. And you watch it now, it's a pretty stable platform that transitions pretty well. Yeah, it's got that big, long wheelbase, which on, the tight turns like what they're coming into now makes it a little bit of a challenge. But he's really done a nice job, and you don't see a lot of that lean, so he can hustle it a bit.
I have to wonder. So a couple years ago, Tom O'Gorman drove Matt Williams' RX-7, which is a highly modified car that runs in Club TR. And he said, yeah, it drives good, but it still drives like an old car. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if this is similar in the sense that, yeah, it drives better, it has better characteristics, but I don't think you can completely eliminate the fact that it's a 1985.
No.
And the chassis will flex. It's going to do things that modern cars just don't do. So you have to kind of fight against that. And oftentimes, the cars that are modified to this level just kind of drive funky. They might be fast, but they're not exactly comfortable or do predictable things all the time.
And that might be part of the challenge that he enjoys, obviously, getting out there in this thing and just wheeling it around. And Cody working really, really hard at it. But that's a good point. I mean, you think about where suspension technology has gone from 85 to now. That's going to be part of the challenge. As you said, it's just old tech. And he's just working on hustling it. And I will guarantee you he gets out of that car, and I'm sure there is a monstrous grin.
There's a monstrous grin on everyone that's watching him get out of the car, too.
That's true.
Who is the crazy guy that picked a Cutlass to go race? No, it's cool. I really like it. It's a neat car. As we move down the order here into Group C, Alex Roy is on track as well. We've got some of really the meat of our Club TR field is in here, so really good mid-pack battles here. Team She Breaks, He Fixes. I think Kelsey is in that car today. It's a blue BRZ that's on track, or blue FRS, excuse me. I got to get that. I think that's right. So I'm one of the sticklers that matters, and I think it definitely is a thing you should point out if it's an FRS or a BRZ. Some people don't care. But coil pack issue yesterday, they stole one on my glove box. They've got that hopefully sorted. I did warn them that I pulled that coil pack out knowing that that one didn't work in my car. So we'll see if it fixes their problem or not.
Yep.
But all right.
Ooh,
Smith.
you see lots of elbows there as he's working it hard. Is there going to be much left of your car by the time of the weekend?
They were joking in the Club TR chat. They posted a photo of a car completely gutted on jack stands and said this is what it's going to look like. And then they said, we'll throw a K-swap in it while it's there. I said, I will not be upset. That sounds like perfectly fair payment for a lower control arm for a week.
Yeah,
you know,
that would be a nice gain on the dividend there, that's for sure.
All right, cars up on top of the board here early in this session. Wes Lundeen in street class cars, Ian Flavin in a BRZ up into third overall here in Club TR. At the top of the list for now, Poulsen right behind in a very similar car. So I think the 199 of Ian Flavin, it's a 2013 BRZ. The 320 car, I think if I have this right, Poulsen, well, where'd my mouse go? There it is. Poulsen is also in a 2013 BRZ out of Burnsville, Minnesota. Both dark gray cars, I think. They're paddocked next to each other. They look identical. And right now, only 0.2 apart on the timing screen.
Really tight. That's what makes this so compelling. There's no question.
There's a good look at the 506 car. Now, the 506. I don't have a 506 on my entry list. Is that 506 or 516? Nope, neither. Trying to get a look. It's a Subaru BRZ, or Subaru WRX. Got BRZ on the brain. It's a 600 car, I think. Yes, Jeffrey West. That's the car leading the way right now. 2006 Subaru Impreza. Jeff's out of Littleton, Colorado. And rolling through the last couple corners right now, using an all-wheel drive system to its max. Good, clean-looking build here, too. Just stark white. Looks really solid.
Really nice. He had a 47.86 as the best time yesterday. Currently at a 48.7. See if he drops that down a little bit.
Up onto the front straight here, kind of hugging the Armco as he comes across the line. Can Jeff West go faster? And looks like no pickup that time.
Not that time.
Alex Lundeen in the 737 is the second place car right now. Alex out of Lino Lakes, Minnesota, in a 2013 Mazda Speed 3. I haven't seen that car yet this weekend, I don't think, but a 49.18 is one he's running at the moment. Ran a 49.3 yesterday, so that's a pickup for Lundeen.
Got to tell you, it's impressive to me, having grown up, spent a large part of my life in Minnesota when I was younger. There's a lot of Minnesotans that seem to have embraced grid life, whether it's in track battle or in GLTC, and it's just kind of an interesting thing to note because you go to lots of. I've been obviously covering lots of racing over the years, and you know there are certainly people occasionally from Minnesota, but it's just big numbers here. And I've always thought Minnesotans, for the most part, had good judgment.
Yeah, I'd say so. By the way, look at 7th through, or make that 6th through, I think 13th, all Falcon Club TR competitors. So watch those battles there. The 150.4 that Flavin has, and then Poulsen, Team She Breaks, He Fixes right behind, and Pizzellis, Bailey, Johnson, and then Not Fast Motorsports, all within basically a second and a half. 7 or 8 cars in that mix.
Really tight.
So bouncing there from Jeff West's car. Look at the slide there. That's what the strength of the all-wheel drive is, that you can really huck the car in and then drive it into slide, knowing when you plant that throttle, it's just going to pull right out of the corner.
And that's what I was talking about. You just get that slight little bit of a loose condition built into the car. The car's free is what you like to call it, and it gets that back end to pivot so you can really get to the throttle here. So while we pick up the 737 of Lundeen here, I'm going to keep an eye on West time as he flashes through, see if he improves on his 48. He did a 48.6. Still,
I think that would have been.
That's a 0.2 quicker than he went yesterday.
So across the line now for Lundeen.
No, it's not. I'm sorry. He had a 47.8 yesterday. My bad.
New fast lap of the session. Cody Smith in the Cutlass jumps up, and Lundeen goes faster, a 1:47.758 for the Mazda Speed 3. So Lundeen resets the fastest lap in this session. Smith reset it just prior to that. Foster Johnson jumps up to a 49.2. And for Foster Johnson, I think, is that a pickup? It is basically equivalent. It is a pickup by 7 thousandths for Foster Johnson.
And for Lundeen, it's a 1.3 second pickup. So
Yeah.
that was one heck of a lap. He scorched it there.
Yep, and looks like he's on a cool down now as one of the BRZs, whether it's Poulsen or Flavin, squeezing on by to the inside at turn 3. But Cody Smith at a 1:48. That's a really good lap for the Cutlass.
Superb.
Not fast across the line. That's the orange FRS there in view. There he is. And generally, this car, I think, is driven by Peter Zhang most of the time, but it's kind of a co-driver situation here with this particular group. And rolling through the backside of the racetrack now, trying to check in on a couple things with that team and driver.
Well, you're looking, Shane Patza just jumped up to second in the session. It's the number 880, that is in FRS. And he had a 47.9 yesterday, and he appears now at a 48.2, so only 0.3 off what he was running yesterday as we keep an eye right now.
Oh, Azamath Muhammad is the other driver behind the wheel of this car, so they've been switching off. That's why it just shows up as Motorsports on the timing and scoring. It's the Not Fast Motorsports crew, Azamath Muhammad and Peter Zhang. Apologies, I was I was trying to remember who was won what car, and I had to look down the order and find it, but I did. And I don't know who's in it right now, but looks like they're currently in 13th in this run group. Piero Pucci is on track in another gray FRS. Pucci, again, we talked about his crash yesterday, the lower control arm issue that he had. He's got that replaced and is back out on track right now and competing, and said it was really important yesterday for him to get back on track and feel confident attacking the road again. And it feels much better going into today. They're also going to have a brand new control arm from Toyota this morning as well. They already should be in the car at this stage, but not sure if they got that fixed yet.
And Tony Starks just took a look, currently 6th in this session, the number 309. I think that's, yeah, the 309 of Tony. A 9/10 of a second gain from yesterday. So he has got driving that TL, and he's got that working really well.
There goes Matt. Well, we got Matt in the background zipping off away. One of the folks on a stream crew here. Tony Starks, by the way, take a guess where he's from. Minnesota. Elk River, Minnesota. Here's Brad Riemann.
My daughter lived in Elk River for a number of years, so know it well.
Yeah, there's Brad Riemann in the 2016 Ford Focus RS out of Elgin, Illinois. We've talked about the Ford Focus a little bit yesterday. The RS configuration, the all-wheel drive turbo variant, and comes after the pretty successful line of ST products that Ford made for a couple of years with the Focus and Fiesta both really good performance values. The RS was kind of a step up in trim, but got you all-wheel drive and north of 300 horsepower. Matt is absolutely killing it right now on the one wheel. Would you be surprised how many racetracks ban these things? Because they're more dangerous than the race cars on the racetrack.
I would think. I would think.
At the Autobahn Country Club where we go, there's no bicycles in the paddock allowed there because there have been more people injured on bikes in the paddock than there have been drivers on the racetrack. So all fair game there, but.
Well, and those one wheels, at least they're safe. They don't just suddenly ignite and explode their batteries.
That's
generally.
true.
So,
yep. It's a good point.
He had great form.
At least.
He had great form. Not a lot of speed, but great form.
Need some Falcon RT660s on him to really get the good grip, You should see the tread pattern on those things. They can wick some water away, I'm telling you. Here's a good look. Here's an ND MX-5. We don't see a lot of these, or not enough, I should say. Wilson Racing Machine, a Sioux Falls, South Dakota group in a 2021 MX-5. And since 1990, when this car debuted here in North America, the Miata has always been a good choice for a lightweight rear-wheel drive roadster. And to this day, I mean, they're a little bit pricier than they used to be, but man, they are nice cars. And the cool thing is they went from the 3rd generation to the 4th generation, and they lost 200 pounds. Tell me what car that happens in nowadays.
That's impressive. And, here's the thing, too, with these cars. Obviously, if you want a car that just plants your butt under acceleration, Mazda's not going to do that. That's not what it's designed to do. But if you want one of the most balanced cars that you can just flow ridiculous amounts of speed through corners, that's mega easy on tires and brakes, that's the car. you know, there are a few that are more fun to drive. Back when I was doing a fair amount of racing, I had the pleasure at Blackhawk Farms of somebody saying, "Hey, I need one more race on my license. They have an enduro this afternoon. I need a co-driver?" And I said, "You bet." And got in it. And I'd heard all the talk, but I'd never driven one. I got out of the car, and you couldn't get the grin off my face because it did everything so well. And at a little track like Blackhawk, monster horsepower you don't need, but you need a car that gets through the corners well, and it was just a joy. And all they've done is get better.
They have just gotten better and better, and I think the only real criticism people have on their handling is that they're a little floppy by default, but you can get them with performance packages from factory or simple spring rate adjustments and new coilovers, and these things will grip and go like nothing else on the road. They're really nice. And also, you can put the top down, which as a 86 BRZ fan, I'm jealous of the Miata owners. Every time I see the top go down, I'm like, you got all the performance, and you can put your top down on a nice day. That's really neat to see. But we don't see a lot of NDs around, and I'm just not sure why, especially with Mazda Motorsports having such a strong grassroots program. You'd think you'd see a lot of those. A ton of NAs, NBs, and a bunch of NCs you'll see, but I don't think that NG generation has quite gotten inexpensive enough for people buying used to really pick them up and start throwing parts at them like the previous gens.
I think that's a really good point, and it'll happen. It'll happen, but yeah, they're just a great car. And you know what? They just look good.
They look great. They always,
especially top off.
Yes.
One of the prettiest convertibles you're ever going to see.
And also the hardtop ND generation car. What do they call that now? There's a name for it. I'm blanking off the top of my head. People in the chat will figure it out. But the retractable hardtop, the RF, the RF. That, if I had to pick one, I know it's a little heavier, but boy, hitting a button and just watching your hardtop roof disappear into your trunk, that's awesome. Doesn't have a really usable trunk at that stage.
But yeah.
But we'll give them credit where credit's due.
What would the F be for there? I could see the retractable
floppy top. That's right. I don't know. I mean,
retractable fold up.
Yeah, sure.
I don't know.
Let's roll with that.
Let's go with that.
There's 100% a reason why that F is there, and everyone's screaming at us right now.
Yeah. I can see if Mo Murray happens to be watching, the vein will be popping out of his forehead right now.
Oh man, I got roasted on a drift show a couple months ago at Lime Rock Park. People that know about cars, they know about cars. And you better not say anything wrong. They'll correct you. It's good because if you have a legitimate question, they'll answer it for you. It's
exactly.
All right, Heat 4 coming up. This is going to be our last track battle group of the morning. We'll take a very brief break. We'll be back with GLTC Top 10 Shootout. So we're not really going anywhere for the next 45 minutes or so just hang tight if you're watching at home. Thanks for joining us here. If you're watching on Twitch, hey, follow us. It'll help us out a ton if you follow us. We've got 6 live streams coming up next season. The schedule for that will be out in about a month's time, so make sure you follow us, subscribe if you have not, to join us in 2023. If you're on YouTube, hit that subscription button and stick around. And of course, if you're on Facebook, like the Facebook page and come hang out with us on Twitch or YouTube. We're keeping going. We're not going anywhere. Time Attack Track Battle B is up next, and then it'll be GLTC Top 10 Shootout following that, where we re-qualify for our third race of the day, which will be a little bit later in the afternoon. So let's go through the schedule for today. Well, we've got a moment. I just mentioned what's happening. Let's talk about the when. So GLTC Top 10 Shootout will be at 11:45, so that's about 20 minutes from now. And then we're going to have a lunch break, and then we'll head into track battle at 1:05. This is all Central Time, by the way. GLTC Race 3 at 2:10. And then we'll shut down for our afternoon. We'll fire back up at 4:40. That will be track battle, and then GLTC Race 4 to finish up our competition sessions for the weekend. And hey, if you're around at 7 o'clock, 7:30, join us on Twitch, Facebook, or YouTube for our awards celebration tonight. We'll be streaming that for the first time ever in GRIDLIFE history tonight.
That is going to be a blast.
Because everyone deserves to get highlighted for their trophy celebration. Why not?
You bet. And I think, you get to see the wit of Adam Jabay.
Adam Jabay, if people aren't, I know there's a lot of people watching right now that are new to GRIDLIFE. Adam Jabay, for lack of a better term, he is the GRIDLIFE Jesus. He is this mythical creature that just kind of floats around, and everyone's got stickers of him on their truck, and he's one of the co-founders of GRIDLIFE alongside Chris Stewart. And Adam is just this very quiet, gentle guy. But he's a tall Dutch dude, and he's always got a cowboy hat on.
Yep.
But he's just, he really helps control the vibe. You come into a GRIDLIFE paddock, it feels different. It's Adam Jabay and Chris Stewart that make it feel that way.
Absolutely.
And Adam, again, running the motorsports program, he's motorsports director. There's a lot of things that happen behind the scenes that he is kind of the beginning of.
Yeah.
And he, we talk about Adam all the time, and you see him on the racetrack. He's just this mythical creature, and you have to point him out every time you see him.
Right. And he, the remarkable GRIDLIFE rule set, that's his baby. So he's a pretty savvy guy.
Yeah, he's very savvy. And again, it all stems from his participation in a bunch of wheel-to-wheel racing classes all through the 90s and early 2000s. He said, I think we can do this better if we do this different. And it wasn't a genesis of, I hate this other place, I want to start my own thing. It was, I love racing. How can I build something that I really want to be a part of for the long term? How can we make this sustainable and fun? And there is just an overwhelming sense in the paddock that everybody loves. Is that Adam? Is he peeking under the tent? Hey, there he is.
Speak of the devil.
Hey.
We're just talking about him like mad.
We're chatting. You want to jump on here real quick? Yeah, come on here. Jump in here real quick. Greg, I'm going to let you chat with Adam for a minute. And again, Adam is the motorsports director, co-founder here at GRIDLIFE. And Adam, take a seat and have a chat here. We got a bunch of viewers on Twitch today.
Yeah, some really impressive numbers. Thanks to everybody who is watching. And nice to have you here, Adam. And really, let's talk a little bit, I think, about the ethos. I think that's what's cool as we'll watch some of the times about GRIDLIFE. The whole concept of GRIDLIFE is, is inclusion. I know that. But it's also driven by respect and fun, and it plays out in every category here.
Yeah, even coming down to the rule sets, like the thought is we want people to be able to build the car that they want to build, but also create great parity. So that's even a little bit of inclusive thing. Like I want that wing, I want that splitter, might not work everywhere. But if you think for about 10,000 hours, maybe you can figure the rule set out that makes it work. But,
exactly.
But yeah, we're just trying to make the best weekend ever for as many drivers as we can. So.
And one of the really key things here, as you said, when it comes to track battle, where you're not necessarily doing door-to-door racing, obviously it's fierce competition, but you want the respect out there. If you've just set a fast lap and you're going to cool things off a little bit, really pay attention, get out of the way, let guys that are on flyers have their time. And as you said, get them grouped as closely as they can. Mm-hmm. Then when you take a look at the GRIDLIFE Touring Cup rules, where you've got such a disparity of engines, body styles, drivetrains, all of it, and somehow working that into a rules package that at the end of a 15-minute race, it's incredibly close competition. And then, so let's talk about that. That one is, I know it's power to weight, but there's lots of little machinations in there that really makes that work.
Yeah, like I was saying earlier, like build the mousetrap that you want to build is sort of been, that was some of the fun parts of some classes that I have participated in,
Mm-hmm.
Allowing engine swaps, but not a lot of, there's a lot of rule sets that don't apply to the modern touring cars or the modern track day cars out there in lots of club racing series. But the other thing that we really wanted to do is we wanted spectators and viewers on the stream to know who was racing who, so there's only one class. But there's such a wide amount of cars, so we just distilled down to the things that make speed, which is, in my opinion, and really on data, is power, weight, grip, and aero. Obviously, drivers make speed too.
Sure.
But power, weight, grip, and aero are kind of the big pieces that we balanced with the rule set. So, you want a little bit more aero, you might have to be 3 to 6% heavier. And you want a little bit more power, you're going to have to be a little bit heavier. The big battle that we fight right now is the changing and ever-evolving tire compounds in the 200 treadwear world. But I think we're at a pretty good place. And next year, I'm very excited about some of the changes. Minor changes, but maybe a little bit of rewards weight changes. Maybe a little bit earlier in the weekend and less on the later side. But it should be a fun season next year too. So.
Well, and when you get the rules package to where now you're making minor tweaks,
right.
That's a really good sign that now we can really massage it and get it right. One of the things that I love about this is the rewards weight concept not being a set amount of weight, because adding 50, adding 75, adding 100,
the first year
different cars affects them very differently.
Yeah, when you've got 2,000-pound cars battling 3,100-pound cars, 125 pounds goes a lot further on a 2,000-pound car than a 3,100-pound car. So we did go to a percentage this year.
And I think that
which worked out really well.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And yeah, the biggest rules change that we've ever made is kind of taking away the R compounds. Previously, like a Hoosier or a BFG Slick or something like that, had to be narrower and a little bit heavier than 200 tread wears. But it got to the point trying to make the 200 tread wears and the 100 tread wears keep up with the really fast DOT slicks that they had to put giant tires on their flaring cars. They're doing modifications to make these other tires work. And then the tires behave very differently inside the weekend, inside the 15-minute race too.
Right.
So that was our biggest swing ever. But I'm really glad that we made it. And the Parady's still incredibly solid. A lot of good input from a lot of experienced people in that field. So.
Yeah, no question. Having a look there at the 130 of Jim Smith-Aline running the Sunday Cup class in the Fit. We talk about, let's get back to Track Battle real quick, all of these different categories, but this Sunday Cup idea and the Track TR class.
Yeah, Club TR, yeah.
Yeah, the Club TR. Those, I think, are two wonderful classes because Club TR is a really close cousin to a GLTC car.
Yep.
And these Sunday, the Sunday Cup cars, they're the best bang for the buck in the business right now in terms of fun for dollar spent.
I take my daughter to school in one sometimes. So they're really, really reasonable, fun cars. Even Club TR, it's disallowing built engines. Just that alone can cut the cost of a build in half. We do allow engine swaps when you go to an engine that's bigger than the factory engine. You have to weigh a minimum of 2,500 pounds, unless there's a couple of other ones like a VR6 and some of the BMW 6-cylinders that have different spec weights.
Right.
But yeah, junkyard engines is the goal, and a max tire for everybody. And Sunday Cup with a 205 max tire. We're killing a lot of shoulders on little tiny tires, but man, those cars are cheap to run besides the front tires. 25-to-1 power to weight ratio, and it really is welcoming to the B-Spec category cars, which also is a wheel-to-wheel class. It's ran with Pro Series, runs with SCCA a lot. Really sort of a great place for a long-time racer to land, even in Time Attack or in wheel-to-wheel. It's an affordable, fun car, easy to work on. You can get a new motor for $200 in the junkyard. Honda Fits don't blow up on the street, so those motors are everywhere.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. And one of the things with it is, whether it's a destination you just love driving because it's so much fun.
Right.
But if you're thinking down the road, okay, I may want to move into something a little more powerful, a little more whatever. Yeah. It's such a great training ground because it's an affordable way to get into it.
Yep.
And anytime you're driving something that's underpowered by design,
right.
Momentum is everything. And
Yep.
then and if you understand that and learn it here, no matter where you go, if you're running in 600 horsepower cars, but everybody around you is in a 600 horsepower car,
Yep.
momentum, if you understand it, it's going to be a great tool.
This car on the screen here right now, this is a former World Challenge car. This is Tom O'Gorman's old car, and they swapped a K24 in it, did some endurance racing, and now it can play in GLTC, it can play in Time Attack. Mark Bushite owns it now, good buddy of Charlie Enslin, who works for us. I actually just put the old shocks from this car, shocks and struts, onto my car. So the parts and they trickle all the way through the paddock. He had them in a box, and I ran one Time Attack last year at Road America. I think I got P4 in Sunday Cup, and I had just cut one coil off the springs. That was my suspension setup. Do a camber bolts and do an alignment. But they're such fun, cheap cars to run. Even there's used parts everywhere. They're fun to build. But they really are a great trainer. It's also a great place for somebody who burns themselves out on the upper end of some competition series to, hey, I could just buy a Fit and drive it on the street and still attend some events with my friends. So it's sort of one of my favorite parts about it. So, and another good chassis, our buddy Dusty Nixon right there in the Z, out with a 153.527. This is his daily driver. He was here last year with an old Camaro that him and his dad have built for a long time. And he placed it wrong somewhere and met a wall. They're fixing some sheet metal. He's out here in his daily driver. It's a great street class car. Just run around in a 350Z. So
just get out and have some fun.
Seat time is still paramount. Seat time is definitely paramount. So
well, and that leads me into the question I wanted to ask about the GLTC. Is the amount of emphasis you guys put on respect your fellow competitors.
Yep.
If you've got overlap, don't turn in. And the idea being you don't want to be stuck at the end of a race or the end of a weekend with a lot of fixing to do on a wrecked car.
Takes all the fun out of it.
That wasn't necessary.
Yeah.
And the byproduct has become some absolutely amazing racing that we get to call side by side through multiple corners that you don't see anywhere else.
Yeah, it's been a big goal, and some of that is made a little easier by the fact that everybody is racing each other. There's no mixed class passing. You don't have a slow car versus a fast car. But in the drivers' meeting, the biggest thing that we preach is, and every single event has a drivers' meeting, maybe two. The biggest thing we preach is to be the racer that you want to race around. And I think if everybody puts all the pieces in the puzzle to have their best weekend ever, if everybody has that mindset, they want to have a clean, solid, really fun weekend, be the racer they want to race around, I think you get really solid battles. You're going to have some mistakes. Some people are going to, you're going to run out of brake pedal. You're going to run out of grip. You're going to try a little too hard or run out of talent just a little bit. But if it's just tire donuts once in a while, I'll take it. If a bumper falls off here and there, that's okay. We just really try to discourage that stuff. So
absolutely. I mean, you want to be able to get done with the weekend and just be smiling.
Yeah.
And that happens so much here. And I got to ask you, one of the things, my favorite car in GLTC, and there's so many, but I just love it because it just, to me, the mentality of it is just wonderful, is a V8 jammed into a BRZ.
That's so cool.
I mean, but that's okay because it's power to weight.
That's a car that came, Eric Jensen's, a car that came from another series also, and he already had a dog box transmission and really taken all the power out of the car, made it super reliable overall for him. He did just break some axle bolts in that last race. Unfortunately, but yeah, it's a super interesting car, and if you can detune it, you can get it into the bracket. So,
yeah, it's really cool. And the last thing was, I love the quote that is most often associated with the mentality for the GLTC racing is the worst thing that can happen if you let the guy have the line beside you.
If you leave enough room,
is you're going to have an amazing race.
Yeah, the worst thing that can happen is you just have a great race.
Yeah,
I actually got the quote from one of our most winning GLTC drivers, Aaron Lichty. So I love that quote. Man, got some chucking in a Subaru here. He actually bought this car on the way to PPIR Festival a few weeks ago. Didn't know what he was going to drive in Time Attack until he bought the car on the way with his wife and a small child. So
is that right?
I love the story behind this thing.
Yep.
Took it all apart, maintained it in the paddock next to the tower, and he's got a Sunday Cup car in about half a day. So
that's incredible.
Super, super fun.
I love it. Just got to give you a quick update. Neil Shart, who's topping this session here, he had a 57.7 was his previous best lap. He's at a 52.1.
That's 5 seconds is a lot to find.
That's a big gain. And Nixon in the number 163, Dustin Nixon, that is a 350Z at a 52.5, and he's dropped that by a tenth. So even though we're starting to see the track warm up, temperatures warming up, there's still speed to be found out there, and everybody's doing a wonderful job of that.
But yeah, Brent Verks here in the ancient Subaru. I mean, look at the body roll on the thing. I told him he needs to cut some coils out of that car, but he's having a good time just in a car that he literally found on Facebook Marketplace, I think, on the way to the event. So
that's incredible.
Yeah, that's to me, that's some of the spirit of the event is you've got a guy and his family that like hanging out in our paddock with these drivers that he drives with. He's active on the Sunday Cup group chat. He did anything he could do just to come hang out with his friends, which is so cool. And I think we just met him this year at AMP. So,
well, and one of the things that I think, a phrase that I've been thinking about a little bit that I think applies so much to grid life is, as important as imagination and innovation is recognition and enabling.
Yeah.
And to say, somebody has this idea and to go, you know what, that's a darn fine idea. Yeah. We'll make that happen.
Yeah.
And you come out and then you get wonderful competition like you have here.
Yeah, and I solicit and covet the opinions and thoughts of pretty much everybody. Not everybody's got the best idea, but if you take everybody's ideas, maybe you create the rule set that you daydreamed of when you were getting into club racing, which is sort of what we have built for myself. So,
yeah. And then you add drifting on multiple weekends, and you add music festivals, and Grid Life is truly a destination. I mean, I went to my first festival this year.
Which one was
that?
Midwest, yes.
And what an event. I mean, the inclusion concept here is just wonderful. Diversity and inclusion. letting everybody that wants to have fun with cars have it.
I've said it a bunch of times. It might be a terrible analogy, but we all have the same disease. Everybody that's there camping, they're there for the music, they're there to see drifting. We all got the same disease. We just get different symptoms.
Yep.
And it's sort of like a big family when you meet all these spectators. When you meet we've got spectators here at this event from Georgia.
Yes.
They just drove up just to see it.
Yeah.
And it's just so cool. I love that people are chasing this series spectator-wise too. They want to see the finals. They want
they're enjoying what's unfolding.
Yeah,
and that's really what it's all about. As the checker flag flies, we are wrapping up here on our track battle coverage here. And again, Shart with that massive gain, really doing a nice job. And Smith-Aline, we talked about the 130. Making up some nice time as well at a 58.1. That's a 10th quicker, and the Sunday Cup field behind them, everybody putting in some really good laps. I imagine you probably need to get running because I got
to go to top 10 shootout.
GLTC shootout.
One other car that we haven't talked about yet is the Rocks Trailer Sales EG Civic 4-door. Jimmy Rauch is he's a buddy of ours. He sells a lot of trailers to people in our paddock. He supports us. They built that car in the past 2 weeks, and him and his buddy Jason Tipple, the goal was to put it within 2 seconds of the leader, and I think he's done it right now. He's within about 2 seconds of the leader, just under. So doing really well in a brand new build. Him and Mike Jansen are co-driving that this weekend. Jimmy Rauch and Mike Jansen. So
that's incredible.
Really cool looking car too. And I think Eric Cattell actually helped them align it like the day before they left. So
is that right?
Yep, they live similar distance to each other. So drove it over to Eric's shop, and Eric knows a 4-door EG now. So.
Eric's got skills.
Yeah, he's got a few setup skills.
Yeah,
Just a couple.
We're going to see him shortly. Thank you, man.
Very good. Thank you for having me.
Great.
Glad I got to deliver that shootout.
Us too. This worked out really well, and we got the top 10 shootout for the GLTC, the GRIDLIFE Touring Cup, is coming up. Adam Jabay, folks, the guy behind what makes this the competition end of this so absolutely exceptional. And just great to be able to spend a little time with it. The other side of it's Chris Stewart, who certainly does an amazing job in his role as well. And in fact, everybody who's part of the GRIDLIFE management team that all play key roles in making this what it is.
Certainly is. Greg, I'm going to let you take a break for a couple minutes because we got the shootout coming up. I'm going to bring in Jake Jornstad, Colton Wade. We're going to have a quick chat real quick while you take a breather for a second before we get into the shootout. We're going to stay live here on Twitch and YouTube and Facebook and all the places. So we'll see you in a couple minutes. Greg, we'll get set for the top 10 shootout, and you can send in Jake on your way out the door. And we'll chat with Jake Jornstad, one of the competitors from GRIDLIFE Touring Cup, and not a competitor in the shootout here coming up here in just a couple of minutes. So in the booth now, as he will be joining me shortly, is Jake Jornstad from Myriad Motorsports. And joining me now is Jake Jornstad from Myriad Motorsports. And Jake, here's the headset. Pull yourself up real tight here. And we just got HPD on track now, so you're not going to be missing anything on track, but we've got a couple of minutes until the GLTC Top 10 shootout starts. And Jake, welcome, first of all. Have you been on the broadcast before in this context?
Not in this context, just, out there sending the car off the track once in a while, whatever. It's my best way to get on usually.
Usually. Well, hey, you bring a lot of cars to the racetrack with a lot of different people. How many cars is Myriad now? We got 4 cars on the team?
Yeah, 4 cars. We've got Joel Morrison, Felipe Gonzalez, Hans Horpedahl, and myself.
Gotcha. And of course, all the cars have the Myriad livery on them now. New livery for Joel this weekend. But there's so much that goes on behind the scenes that people don't see. One of the things that I wanted to touch base on was the engine swap on Thursday night with a guy that you just met a couple hours prior.
Yeah, so we're hanging out. Tony's first year GRIDLIFE, I think, first actual event probably. And everybody wants these guys to have a great time. And his engine flywheel flew apart, bolts were loose or something. And so he went over to ASM, and they said, hey, we've got an engine for you. And they came over, and he said, hey, can we put this thing in? And we're like, I think we can help. We'll use the lift to pull the engine out. So he threw straps on. He pulled it up into the back of our trailer and took the engine out, put the engine in, put the transmission in. Our guys are all helping, Cody especially. And by 3 in the morning, I was trying to sleep, heard that thing fire up. And I'm like, wow, they did it. And so he went racing. And he just beat me this morning. Yeah. So
we talk about racing as a team sport more than I think people realize. And yes, there's some individuality to it when it comes to the racetrack, but off the track, it's so much team effort. Yeah. And you've got a bunch of team guys that come help you out every weekend.
Yeah, I mean, having your crew. I mean, Cody and Gil and the guys, they're awesome at what they do, and they show up I mean, they're volunteering their time, their weekends to be out here helping the team. And, I mean, my brake pads used to just completely run out and bolts would fly out without these guys around. And so we've certainly gotten better and leveled up. So
this weekend, this is your second time to Heartland Park in GLTC context.
Yeah.
How many times have you been here prior to that?
I used to race NASA here, NASA Central, probably 2 or 3 times before. Had the NASA ST4 record for a little while. Come here and can't break in the top 10. So
well, it's hard.
Welcome to GLTC.
Right. We talk about GLTC as a challenging series, right? I mean, of course, the power to weight balance, the kind of different ways to skin the cat, different engine layouts and drivetrain layouts and different ways to do it. You guys have settled on an S2000 as the chassis, but have had some interesting engine combinations in with it as well.
Yeah, so we used to have the F20s, rip into 9,000 RPMs. That's stock S2000 motor originally, ITBs. Went to K24 this winter, except Joel. Joel went V6, J35, now J32. His 35 wasn't making enough power up top. It was just falling. And the 3.2-liter junkyard motor he put in a couple races ago has been just absolutely 100 times better, and that's what he's running. So we're all running sub-$1,000 motors, and we put the rest of the parts together and drop them in, and
yeah,
we're learning which is best. And I think it's coming down to the motor makes a little bit of difference, but in the end, the chassis setup in an S2000 is the most important thing to get right. We're still obviously dialing our stuff in, trying to learn what's best, but Joel's car is the best chassis setup. We know that right now.
Yeah. He certainly found a lot of success. I mean, you look back at Alpine Horizon where we had saw him back after he had got some damage earlier in the year, and that car kind of got rebuilt, the motor, all that stuff. It seems like it's been a struggle at the dyno to get that engine to behave the right way. But, of course, you're trying to really push the limit there as much as you can without going over. But, what about ECU tuning, and how much do the electronics factor into that as well?
Yeah,
challenge.
So for us, we're all running Fuel Tech, and it's, in the case of Joel's car, he's got an electronic throttle body.
Mm-hmm.
So he's trying to tune for a flatter curve because he's got the V6 with more torque. And we were down in Alpine, and we tuned the car. We're under the numbers there after that. Came here without touching the car, and we're probably with elevation difference, whatever. He made 7 more than he was allowed last night, and so he was DQ'd for the first race. But, it is what it is. We're not trying to cheat, obviously, and he put the car on the dyno for another hour and a half, working with our friends Eric Levine up in Canada, remote tuning. And got the car sorted. He feels like he's a little slow today, but the car's legal now, and we're having fun. So
well, that's the important part. We talk about the fun of GLTC, and yes, it's a serious series with serious drivers. But at the end of the day, you guys are pretty easy to find having fun riding around and with the raccoon hat or whatever you got on your head. What do they call those?
Well, it's I don't even know what that's called.
Okay,
we found it at the truck stop though. That's for sure.
Great. Okay, truck stop. That's great.
Yeah, the coon hat. So we're always trying to have fun, even if our weekend's not going great. Like, we're always smiles on our faces, having fun. We make sure we eat well. So Gil's always cooking. I mean, we had Gil's Nudes last night. We call them the Gil's Noodles.
Good. Yes,
yeah,
excellent.
They're incredible. So we're always doing a good job of having fun and hanging out with everybody on the GRIDLIFE. So
and how important is that? I mean, when we talk about the different paddocks, and of course, maybe not trying to directly compare, but you talk about the fun that we like to have here in GRIDLIFE. Is that something that you feel is extremely important and a differentiating factor maybe, is that you can have fun even if you're not at the pointy end?
I think that's the main reason why we come to GRIDLIFE. Eric Jensen showed up a day early without his car. His son's bringing his car down. I'm like, Eric, why are you here? He's like, I'm here to hang out with you guys. He's going to race the next day, but he came a whole day early just to hang out. And so that's kind of the I think what makes GRIDLIFE great. I mean, the music, the people, we're jamming in the paddock with music every single time, cruising around, checking on people, doing engine swaps for other people, whatever we got to do to have fun.
Awesome.
So it's an incredible environment for us.
Well, not in top 10 shootout this time, but race
Just
3.
about 11th.
11th. Not bad. Not very, very, very close. But it'll be starting 11th for race number 3. Good luck out there. Bring Colton in. I see him lurking back there. So bring Colton in, and we'll see you on the other side.
Thanks, man.
All right, thank you. That was Jake Jornstein from Myriad Motorsports, and Colton Wade will be joining me shortly here from Regular Guy Racing and Fields Auto Works as Jake moves along. We've got Colton Wade joining us in the booth now. He's been Mr. Hype Man this weekend. Joining us here on the live stream now, Colton Wade, driver number 18, Fields Auto Works Regular Guy Racing M3. Colton, welcome to the live stream. Thanks for joining me.
Absolutely, Kyle. I'm glad to be here, man.
Well,
I guess I can take these off, huh?
You can if you'd like. You like to see those pretty eyes of yours. We like to give Colton a big old hug every time I see him. This weekend, obviously, we didn't start off great. Had an incident in practice or the test day. Practice.
It was practice on
Yep.
Thursday with the ASM guys, yep.
Yep, but had an incident. The car is in bad shape, but you've been donating parts to other people in the typical Colton fashion, and now you're just kind of working grid and hyping things up. How's the weekend been so far?
It's actually, as crappy as it started, I'm having a blast this weekend. I'm getting to spend time with folks I usually don't get to spend a lot of time with because I'm in the car. But it's been a blast. There's great energy on the grid, great energy on the paddock. I'm having a great time this weekend regardless of the circumstances.
Yeah, we just talking with Jake Jornstad about GridLife Touring Cup, the challenges of, sorting out new builds and that sort of thing. A lot of progress this year on your number 18 M3, but also a lot of gremlins along the way. Talk to me about the challenges this year and how you've overcome those.
It's been a challenge, it seems like, every weekend that we've had, and it's not for lack of effort. I mean, I applaud everybody on the team. Everyone really deserves better results than we've, had this year, but I think the car really started off kind of rushed when we wanted to join the field in 2018. So we didn't. I don't think we were as thorough as we should have been, and that's partly my fault for wanting to get out here with some haste. But the good news is, a couple years ago, we invested in a nice donor car, and we stripped that down to the shell, and it's caged and dipped and ready to go. It's a phenomenal chassis with a lot of potential. So I think right now my head's kind of thinking, let's start moving parts over from the current chassis to the new one. And it should be a really promising fresh build.
Well, that's really, really exciting. And, of course, it's always good to have a backup plan.
Yes, it is.
And keep you on the racetrack as much as possible. Guys like Eric Cattell had a crash late in the season and went completely different direction, ended up making it to Mid-Ohio was the first debut for Eric Cattell. But that was exciting. Hopefully it will be ready to rip by the beginning of next season. I know you guys will have it done.
Yeah, that's the plan. We've got the off-season's coming at a good time for us. That car that we put in the wall on Thursday was actually getting torn down this off-season anyways to address some of these issues that you mentioned previously. So really not in that tough of a spot given what we were planning for the off-season. And I'm really excited about starting fresh with a new chassis.
Well, it's really going to be really exciting. Talk to me a little bit about some of the new things this season for you at Fields Auto Works. You've got that Acura RSX now in the stable, and that's being used for something pretty special. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so thanks for bringing that up. That's Regular Guy Racing's Future Frontrunners Scholarship. It's an annual scholarship that we give out to a talented, up-and-coming, well-deserving female driver. GridLife's HPDE program is a good feeder program for that. Time Attack's been a good feeder program for us there. We are going to start, take note, viewers, because we are going to start taking applications for that scholarship once the season's over. And it'll probably be a single event scholarship again next year, but my hope is that we can kind of grow that program and usher in more and more female talent into the field. Lisa Keys, if you're watching, very, very proud to have you join us for several races after your scholarship weekend at Blackhawk. It's really cool to see some of those scholarship recipients use their competition license and join the GLTC field. It's been a proud moment for me and the guys at the shop.
A really, really cool thing, and thanks for doing that. And again, we talk about the paddock helping each other out all the time, and it goes beyond just parts sharing in the weekend. It goes pretty deep into the future and beyond. So, hey, Colton, thanks so much for joining me here.
Absolutely, Kyle. Thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely.
Broadcast is great as always, man.
Thank you. Yeah, we've got Shootout in about 10 minutes' time, so we'll head back to the grid. You're all set, Colton. Thanks so much. And in just a few minutes, we'll bring Greg Kramer back in. But for now, we're going to take a very short break, and we'll be back with you for the start of GridLife Touring Cup Top 10 Shootout here from Heartland Motorsport Park in just a few moments. Coverage of GridLife Finals is brought to you by Valvoline, the official motor oil of GridLife. Momo, made in Italy since 1964. FCP Euro, every part you buy is guaranteed for life. eBay Motors, let's ride. and Falcon tires. The Falcon Azenas RT660 is the official tire of Club TR.
Green flag flies, and we're racing. The Hightower pushes Jensen along the exit of turn number 4. This win, it's big fly! It's time to go racing at GRIDLIFE Midwest. Hill side by side. O'Gorman around the outside now for the top spot. Tom O'Gorman goes the lead. 3 wide the lead.
This is great racing, folks. This is what this series is all about.
Welcome back to Heartland Motorsports Park and GRIDLIFE's finale event in Topeka, Kansas. This is GRIDLIFE Touring Cup's Top 10 Shootout upcoming in about 5 minutes' time. Top of the hour, we're going to send the top 10 finishers from race number 2 back onto the racetrack, one car at a time. They get one flying lap that will set their starting position for race number 3 later this afternoon. Greg, welcome back. Greg Creamer alongside me. Greg, we had a phenomenal race 2 this morning, but more to come today.
We do, and it was interesting. I went and talked to the top 2 guys in that race. Robert Thorne getting the win, O'Gorman getting second, and Tomo made 2 comments. He said, I backed it into 6, and he said the problem was he said the car was starting to go loose. And he said, if we can't solve that, we're going to struggle for the rest of the weekend. He said, because it wasn't that long a race. And it went diabolically loose. And he said, that's what happened going into 6. I just had nothing. And then I talked to Robert Thorne. And he said, here's the interesting thing. He said, I'm so pumped for the rest of the weekend. He said, because in that race, he said, I was trying to conserve tires a little bit. And he said, I was breathing it. He said, that's when Tomo got by me that one time. And he said, but I didn't want to push him too hard. And he said, so then I got by him. He made his little mistake. I'd been pressuring him. And he said, then I set my fastest lap on the last lap. And he said, I got this huge grin on my face because I said, I can push these a little harder sooner if I need to, and they're going to stay there. And so Tomo was saying, if we can't solve the problem in the car, I got nothing for him. And Robert was saying, oh, it's hooking up. It's hooking up. He was just all grins. And, he figured out what Tomo did as well, that the lateral stuff is what starts to go away. But if you get the car rotated, the longitudinal launch grip is still there. And we saw that in his runs coming out of turn 6 and out of 14, and he really used that to great effect here. So I think we're going to be in for some really good racing, and the shootout's going to be absolutely furious.
It is going to be. Again, top 10 finishers are going to be the ones that roll out here for the shootout grid order. We're going to start with our 10th place finisher and work our way forward. Each driver gets one flying lap. A warm-up, one flying lap. That's your timed lap that counts, and you head back to the pits after that. Tony Marchev, first ever GRIDLIFE Touring Cup weekend. What a drive. It is an absolute privilege to get into the shootout in a competition field this stacked. And Tony Marchev in the top 10 in race 2. That's got to feel really, really good.
Well, considering that in the first race he made up 18 spots, in the second race he made up, 7? So, I mean, from the first 2 races he had to pass 25 cars to get up into this top 10 in his first ever event. That says a lot about his potential, no question.
And then Jackson Jensen will be our second competitor in the shootout, number 527, son of Eric Jensen. Scott Robertson will roll off in third. This might be Scott Robertson's first top 10 shootout appearance, which is really exciting, I'm sure. Then Zach Lavoie making his second shootout appearance. Then Matan Rosenberg, Eric Catil, Austin Hurdle, Andy Smedegaard, Tom O'Gorman, and then Robert Thorne, who was the winner in race 2. Now, talking about Robert Thorne, discovering the potential in those tires. I'm still going to put my money on Tomo. I think he's got that single lap pace sorted out. He's so aggressive, and he can make it stick. I'm going to pick Tomo as my pick, which is not really going out on a limb in any way, shape, or form.
I was going to say, how brave of you.
Exactly. One driver not here is Matt Waldbaum. We saw that contact that he had with Austin Hurdle. Austin Hurdle ended up finishing 4th, no big deal. It was not Matt overcharging the corner. Learned after the fact that when Matt hit the brake pedal, broke a bolt in the pedal box and had the whole pedal box shift on him, and that's what caused him to slide up into Austin. Not a driver mistake.
No.
It was a parts failure.
And in fact, it was a brilliant bit of evasive because he did tap Austin. I went and looked at Austin's car, and it's down just in front of the left rear. You could see the little bit of contact. Wasn't hard at all. And what Matt did when the pedal went and snapped like that, he immediately cranked in, went huge amounts of steering input, and just jammed it down a gear to get the back end to lock and pivot around and keep him, keep that front end from really driving hard into Austin Hurdle. He sacrificed himself in the car to not take out Austin and just give him that little bump. So it was a really, really savvy piece of driving when the pedal went down to make that save, if you will. So all credit to Matt Waldbaum.
And the first thing he did when he got off the racetrack is he put in the group chat for the weekend. He goes, "That was on me. Parts failure. This is what happened, but it's still on me," and said to Renee Hines, our steward, basically said, I own up to that, regardless of whether or not it was intentional. Still had an incident where there was contact. Immediately said the situation, shared it. That's what we expect out of drivers, and Matt was the shining, perfect example of what you should.
He was the poster boy, and I loved it. He just said, to save you time, you don't have to be investigating.
Don't investigate.
It's on me.
It's on me.
It happens.
But he will not make a shootout appearance, which is a real shame.
It
because
is.
He could really be a threat up in the mix here.
Oh, he was flying around here. And the interesting thing is, that goes back to the interview that I got to do with Adam, and I thank you for that. It was nice to have that visit with him. But talking about the respect that these drivers have for each other, and if there's any way to avoid undue issues for a competitor, they're going to do it. And to see Matt, when he had that failure, his first thought was not, all right, can I get through this? Can I, all right, whatever, was to absolutely do everything he could, even if it meant possibly breaking his car more to avoid hitting Hurdle hard. That's what this series is all about. It's class act stuff.
Certainly, and I think there's an example of those all through this shootout grid order. We mentioned Tony Marchev, Jackson Jensen, Scott Robertson, though, from Robertson Racing in that 2-1-3 will roll off third on this grid. Zach Lavoie, Matan Rosenberg, as I mentioned, 18 still. He messaged me this morning about that. So 18 years old. Man, that makes me feel old. I'm only 24, Greg. So this is it's embarrassing, quite frankly, that he's doing as good as he is, and I'm just talking about it. But Catil will roll off in 6th.
I feel like I should get out of the chair, grab my walker, and go home after that.
Oh no. Well, it's all good. You got the experience. I don't have either. I don't have a race car or the experience yet, so we're not looking so great over here. Then Austin Hurdle will be 7th, Andy Smedegaard 8th, O'Gorman 9th, and again Robert Thorne will be the last driver to run. Is there any advantage running later? I would say typically there would be if the track was a little wet, if there was a dry line starting to form. Right now, the sun continues to get a little higher in the sky here. We're at high noon at this stage, so earlier better, later better? Does it really matter all that much?
The amount of time that's going to unfold, I don't think you're necessarily going to see a lot of change in terms of track temp. It's 1 o'clock. The sun's fairly high in the sky at this time of year anyway, so I don't think there's going to be a huge advantage. I think in this case, it's a little cooler now than it will be at the end of the session, so there might be just that little bit of advantage to be first out of the gate, and we'll see how that plays out. But of course, you've got Tony Marchev and Jackson Jensen, Maverick as we call him. He's the son of Eric Jensen, and we just saw him one day, and he very much looked like the character from the Maverick movie. So we just started to call him that. But Marchev, Jensen, Robertson, even Lavoie, and Rosenberg, all of these guys aren't really experienced in this one-lap shootout thing. So, it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with it.
Certainly. Having a look here at Heartland Motorsports Park here in Topeka, Kansas. The big acceleration zones, 6 and 14. That's really where our focus is. But 1 through 5, lot of flow that you have to carry through there. So my eyes will be on that. And then 10 through 14, another critical section where it's really easy to see. Camera's real low. You can see the car kind of shimmying and shuffling with the grip. It'll be a lot of fun to watch.
Well, and the thing is here, in qualifying, you're going to drive it differently than you would racing it. So any of the corners where you might, normally in a race sort of pinch in a little bit earlier to protect somebody from diving up the inside of you. Here you're going to let that radius, you're going to leave it wide open and drive the absolute optimal line for speed through the corner, and that's going to be really critical. So you're probably going to just let it flow in 3 and in 4. The other one that's interesting is we're right here. That's turn 10. You flick through 11, and you want to, in this case, because you're going to be carrying a lot more speed from that back straight through turn 10, and you want to maintain that speed as long as you can, right? So you're going to give up what they call the entrance to 12. And what I mean is, normally you'd swing through this corner. We're looking at 10, then 11, and then you'd arc back over to set up then for 12. In this case, 12 is kind of a throwaway corner, right? It's a tight turn that leads into a crucial turn you want to get through 13. So here, give up the entrance to 12, flow that speed, open your lineup as you exit turn number 11 there, and run it all the way to the outside driver's left of the track, because that'll allow you to carry that speed, and you cover more distance at a higher speed. That translates into lower track times. So give it up, brake hard for 12, pivot it, set yourself up then to really late apex 13 so that you can really swing far right and get on the throttle and get that car straightened out for that big traction event you've talked about at 14. That's you often see people when they start their qualifiers, they might over in 14. If I were them, I'd drive into 14 as deep as I could, get that car pivoted, get to throttle. And then finish the lap flowing a little bit more speed through there. But, to launch your lap, is max acceleration out of 14 is going to be everything.
So cars lining up here on the pit lane. We might run more than one car at a time. We got to find a little time here. There's been a few delays in the day so far. So we could see up to 3 cars on track at once just to find a little time here. We'll see how they run it. Maybe not immediately, but that towards the end, they're probably going to run a few more just to kind of skip things along here a little bit. We've had a little delay along the way here this morning. So you're about ready to watch the GLTC Top 10 Shootout. The top 10 finishers running in reverse order from their Race 2 results to requalify for race number 3. This is power to weight competition. Cars that come from 2,500 pounds, 3,500 pounds, 160 horsepower to 240 horsepower, all over the board, all running together. And a couple first-time appearers here on this list. We mentioned Tony Marchev, Scott Robertson, and a few second-time appearers, Matan Rosenberg, as well as I think Austin Hurdles only has one other opportunity, and Zach Lavoie. Cars rolling, single car right now. Tony Marchev going to be the first driver to roll off the pit lane. This is, again, a new competitor in GridLife competition. He has a shop up in Illinois, just north of Chicago. And this is driver number 17, Tony Marchev, out of Lincolnshire, Illinois. And Tony runs Tony Motive Performance. This is a 2001 Honda S2000. And he's going to get this car up to speed. This is a fresh engine put in by the Myriad Motorsports Camp Thursday night. We talked to Jake Jornstad about that.
Who just met him.
That just met him. We chatted about that. They got done at 3 in the morning, fired the engine up.
So, I mean, he has already, in his first ever event, been a beneficiary of the camaraderie and support that this paddock offers. And as I said, whether it's your crew or somebody else's that helps you, the best reward is to give him a good run. He's done that in both races. Now let's see what he can do in this.
Right, and again, S2000s, we've seen how capable these chassis are. There's a handful of them here in this particular run group. We've got Tomo, Andy, in 2 of them, then Zach Lavoie is the 3rd, Tony Marchev is the 4th. So 4 of the top 10 cars are S2000s. That just shows you how balanced these cars are. Of course, all of these cars are pretty highly modified in terms of their suspension setup, but the S2000, I mentioned it earlier, one of the best cars ever made, in my opinion. You throw a hard top on it, a good set of shocks, a little wide body in the ASM case, and some aero, and certainly these cars are very stout road racing cars. Here's Tony Marchev now through turn number 11. That thing is looking so dialed.
And, just to add the one last thing on the S2000s, I think they're one of the prettiest cars ever made. Everything about it, slippery, aesthetically pleasing, and goes like stink. I mean, you can't really better that. Here we go now. On to the front straight, out of 14. Good drive. didn't use up too much and have to overcorrect coming onto 14. Green flag flies, laps underway.
Here we go, up over Alpha. That's that left-hand turn and the crest up over the hill, then into turn 1 and 2, the right-left combination. Tony Marchev in his first ever appearance in GRIDLIFE Touring Cup and the shootout through turn 1. Nicely done so far. Tucks it in tight for 2 and heads to 3.
Did you hear that little bobble there? That was that bump that we were talking about. He had it nice and straight over that. Now into 3. It climbs with banking. You just dive it in there, let gravity and the banking work for you. Look at that. Comes out nice and shallow, middle of the track.
Into turn 4 now, the right-hander that leads into 5 and 6. One of the most important corners on the racetrack. Marchev a little tentative through there maybe, but gets on throttle nice and early and throttles up towards turn 6. And this is a critical corner in a car, especially one that's not a V8.
Yep, get it rotated, get the power hard. Picked it up pretty well there. And sometimes, you think, well, he could have gotten the throttle sooner, but if you carry enough speed through the corner, you can, you wait a little bit on the throttle to get the car straightened out, but if you flowed speed, it won't hurt you too much. This is really crucial here. This is where you see it. You got to get up on that curb a little bit, use that curb a little bit. Absolutely beautiful through there. Marchev is really throwing down a good lap here.
He is, and now he heads down towards turn number 10, the left-right combination that leads into an even tighter right-left combination. Ooh, nice line through here. Carves it in, and now jumps on the brakes.
Gave it up beautifully there.
Yeah,
yep.
Just looks so well sorted. It's not wild looking at all, but the question is it fast?
That's the key. Here we go, swing over now through 14, and wait, go hard to throttle. Maybe a little bit more track there than you wanted to use, but you want to just make sure you're flowing as much speed. Checker flag flies. Let's see what the number is that comes up. A 1:46.091.
Yep.
So that's our target time.
Yeah, not a bad lap. It's not going to be pole by my guess, but
right.
A very solid start to this session. Next up is going to be Jackson Jensen, who is rolling fairly slowly and is making a left-hand turn off of the racetrack. It looks like he might have a mechanical issue, which this happened back at Alpine Horizon as well. He didn't get rolling and had to just basically give up on that opportunity because of an oil pressure problem. Wonder if it's the same situation here.
Now that's such a, and obviously his dad had the problem in the first race of the morning. So for the Jensens, this has been a tough go here. Jackson had a great race in that race when dad had his issues, but now for Jackson, that's sad to see.
Yeah, they're going to send out Scott Robertson now. So Jackson is going to forfeit any opportunity to run. You can't go back out a second time. That's it.
But he will start 10th.
He will start no worse than 10th. That's
yep.
the situation here. So Marchev automatically now will be worst 9th place.
Yeah, so all right, here comes Robertson. Again, we think this might be his first top 10 appearance. And he's one of the really great guys. There are so many folks in this paddock that are fabulous, and he certainly fits in there. And he's taking it a bit easy here, just eyeballing the track, looking for any issues here. At a certain point, you want to pick the pace up to make sure you've got heat and thus the pressure in the tire. And really what you want to do is when you come out of 14, you want to have your tire pressures, which are dictated by the temperature in the tire, at the exact right spot for the tire and for the setup on the car, so that on your one lap when you start it, everything is in line, and you hope you pressured them right, so by the end of the lap, the pressures don't climb too much as the tire gains more heat.
I think Robertson might be one of the drivers that's on the Falcon RT 660 tire, so that's a tire that can get pretty greasy if you overheat it, so maybe just calmly getting warmed up here. Scott hails out of Holland, Michigan, and is here with now fiancee Becky Burton as they head down towards turn number 8, and of course Scott in the Robertson Racing NB generation Mazda Miata. Now Scott's season coming into the weekend, his points position is currently 18th if things were to finish as they are back at AMP. Had 4 top 10s there. Had some trouble at Midwest, had some finishes outside of the top 20. Got a top 10 back at Autobahn. Mid-Ohio was kind of top 20, and we haven't seen him since, so glad to have him back here for the first time since August.
Yeah, great to see him, and doing a really nice job here. You can see him weaving a little bit. Some of that is temping the tires. Some of that is just making sure they're clean. People have pulled dirt and debris up onto the track, and boy, he really used a lot of track out at 14, but he's just rolling speed, and the green flag flies. His lap is underway, Kyle.
Headlights flashing And down towards Alpha, up towards turns 1 and 2. And again, the Miata, the balance of this chassis is the big advantage here. The lightweight of this car tucks it in for turn 1. Scott is very familiar with data analysis, runs that as a service here for other competitors alongside Becky Burton. They look at tire pressures and data analysis all the time. So I think he knows exactly what his goals are in this particular lap.
I think so too. And you can see he diamonded turn 3 a little bit.
Left a tire mark out at
sure
turn 3.
Did. So he's giving it some welly here. Another little slide all over that exit curb. I mean, that was perfect. A lot of rotation there. That, unfortunately, I think he scrubbed some valuable speed there.
Yeah, 3 through 5, a little bit wild looking. Let's see if he can get a good run out of 6 and recover some of that time through 8, 9, and 10. But climbs up out of 7 now. And sliding around those rear tires, they could make him pretty hot pretty quick. But we'll see if he can recover this down the backstretch now.
Now, see how he does through the that left, right, left complex here. I hate to call it a chicane because it's really more flowy than that. It's like some S's, and really nice through there.
Really well placed on the racetrack. Now on the brakes into turn 10, and right up on the inside curb. Tracks out, turns in tight now for 11 at the right-hander, and only a couple corners left. And this is really where this car will find a big advantage in the race. Lightweight and nimble. Little bobble there through turn number 12.
Yeah, you can see him fighting the wheel just a little bit. Nice line here. That's exactly how you want to play that corner. Missed the apex there just a smidge, and hard on the throttle here. Interesting to see where this shakes out in terms of a time. Remember, he's trying to beat at list stage a 146.0.
All right, across the line for Scott Robertson, and yes, top of the board, 145.832 for Scott Robertson. He will at worst start 8th in race 3.
And that means next up will be Zach Lavoie, number 42.
Out of Birmingham, Alabama with ASM. Zach has had a phenomenal season. And joined us last year, and think back to Road America when Tom O'Gorman had his car crashed in the week leading up to it. Well, Zach Lavoie donated his car to Tomo to use in that season finale to go on to finish 4th in the championship. Zach is one of the happiest people in the paddock, always willing to give you a big old hug. And here he goes down towards turn number 1 and Alpha there as he crests the hill.
Yeah, he is, I think, in the dictionary under the word ebullient, they need his picture. He is just always an absolute delight, and he's a pretty good wheel man, too, no question about that. Heads off into turn 3. See him just tuck it down to the inside using the banking. Just keeps it nice and tight down to the inside. Now you let the car unwind a little bit. This is that corner you want to flow everything through here. A bit more control than Robertson was. And here's the key. You get into 5, and you got to get through 5 right so you can really get the drive and set up correctly for 6. And here's your launch point. Nice late apex, straight power. Yeah, I can hear him pick that power up. And it was about as early as anybody we've seen thus far getting the power coming out of 6. And that means he had that wheel unwinding, those front wheels unwinding a little bit early and went to power. Feeds it into 8 here.
Nicely done so far. Zach's best finish on the season, 3rd back at AMP. Average finish of 11.6, but executed that very, very nicely.
Yep, very cleanly. Didn't use much of the curbs there, and is being mindful of that. All right, here we go through 11. And nice job into 12. Just gives that up. Doesn't worry about 12. Gets set up for 13 here. You want to exit way to the right for 13. He does that. Gives it nice rotation, gets to the throttle early and uses less track on the exit there as well. So by all accounts, very smooth on this lap. See what he does in terms of a time. Does he beat a 1? He does.
144.321, top of the board for Zach Lavoie as we head over now to Matan Rosenberg, number 484. Again, this is a youngster, 18 years old, out of Pepper Pike, Ohio, for Rosenberg Racing in that 1995 Mazda MX-5. And Matan has a whole bunch of people helping him out here in the background. He wanted to give a shout out to Aaron, who's in the paddock with him. A birthday shout out since it was his birthday yesterday, and helps a lot with the setup alongside Emil Tab, who's not here this weekend. But partners and people that help Matan move Auto Interest. You see the logos on that car: Hawk Performance, Genesis Attachments, Brofab, Triumph Express, Triumph Metal Trading, Craneworks, Auto Assets. We've already Auto Interest and Auto Assets, Koenig Wheel USA on board this car. So heads down towards turn turn number 3, and the young 18-year-old certainly ahead of his time and talent.
I think so, too. And he had his first ever top 10 shootout at Gingerman for the Midwest Fest. He was absolutely delighted with it. I think the nerves got to him a little bit there, but now he's done one. He understands it. Really got through 4 beautifully here. And watching, picked up the throttle nice and early out of 5. I want to listen here because this is kind of the key. I want to reference him versus Lavoie.
And on exit.
Not bad. A little bit later than Lavoie did, but still very, very good.
And now out of 7 and onto the backstretch. Again, the place where the Miata is really happy is this final sector, really 10 through 14. Quick direction changes, shorter wheelbase than some of the other cars. These high-speed sections, though, you're leaning on your arrow.
Ooh, beautiful. And that he used both the turn-in curb at 8 and the exit curb at 9 to absolute perfection. Now, see what he does through here. Here's where you got to make sure you don't get too much rotate. That was actually not bad. He got it to rotate, but it didn't scrub much.
Yeah, he was definitely in a slide there
yes,
for a second. He gathered it up and carried pretty good speed. Now into 13 at the right-hander, and now prepping up for this long launch down the front straight here for Matan Rosenberg. The Rosenberg Racing number 484. This is the longest trip back to the checkered.
Yes,
ever.
It is.
Here they come across the line. Matan Rosenberg, does he go to the top? Second place, so 144.873 for Matan Rosenberg.
Still in all for the young 18-year-old who does most of the work in that car himself along with his buddy. That's not a bad lap. Now, here is Eric Cattell, and he is one of the guns in this paddock, and it'll be fun to see what he lays down here.
2020 champion of GridLife Touring Cup. Last season, lost in fairly spectacular fashion at Road America, the National Park of Speed out there. Had an incident and had to rebuild a new car and decided to go same generation, different chassis style. He's elected for the sedan version of the EG generation Honda Civic. This is an all-new build with help from Hybrid Racing and many other partners and people on Cattell's car. Hometown Hilliard, Ohio, and rolling through turn number 3 now. It looks pretty well sorted. He was struggling with this balance in this car all week. A lot of bouncing rear end slide, and spun out in race 1, still finished 5th, but this has not been as easy as Lime Rock was for him.
No, it hasn't. It's been a challenge for him a little bit. It's getting the balance between the front and rear grip is what he's been chasing a little bit. But he understands what you have to do on these single car or a single lap qualifier efforts, and he's been really, really smooth here. And that's really key because his car by design is a bit underpowered, obviously. And so for him, it's all about the momentum and flowing the speed as he runs a lighter car, which means a little less power under the hood. And it's all momentum here. So here we go as he's working his way up now into turn 10. This is
Whoa! Man, Cattell hustles this car every time.
He does.
In the shootout, we think back to Lime Rock, he had this car sideways and in the dirt, trying to carry as much speed as possible. That is about as fast as you can go through that corner and not spin out.
It is. Unfortunately, that scrubbed a lot of speed and momentum. And when you have that lurid of a slide, and so we'll have to see what he puts up on the board here. And it's not going to be as fast as it could have been because the rest of the lap looked great. And, yeah, it jumps up into second at a 44.3 as Hurdle right now is out, and we've seen speed from him, certainly.
Yeah, he is on a hot lap right now, hustling this car. Remember the welded control arm repair after that mechanical issue yesterday. So trying to recover a great 4th place finish in the race this morning as Austin Hurdle rolls through the final corner following Andy Smedegaard now as they both come to the start-finish line. Again, more cars on track than we typically would have at once in the shootout. They're going to come back nose to tail. Maybe a little slipstream for the 34 now. Across the line, where does Hurdle go? Top of the board, 144.112 for Austin Hurdle. That 370Z is fast this weekend.
I thought for a minute there that he may have lost a little bit of time, but apparently Andy saw him coming and got on the throttle just a little bit to not impede him too much. To the top he goes. And now Andy Smedegaard is out there, and it was the race this morning where they tested how well that fix worked. worked pretty good. And so now he knows exactly what he's got under him for this lap.
That is going to be a really solid lap, but can he go faster than Smedegaard, O'Gorman, or Robert Thorne? That is going to be a pretty big challenge. Andy Smedegaard out of Plover, Wisconsin, team leader over there at ASM, but also a phenomenal driver. While we've been watching Swenson's season and O'Gorman's season, it's often easy to forget about how good Andy has been this year. 29 podiums,
just exceptional.
6 wins, 6 poles, average finish of 5.5, all while supporting a dozen cars in the paddock every week.
Yeah, I mean, he spends more time on those customer cars often than he does on his own, and yet he gets out and is able to wheel it to that many podiums. It's really been a superb season for him, particularly with his team ownership responsibilities piling on. Here he is into 10, nice and planted there, turns it in, gives that up a little bit, just like you should. And now here's the telltale. This will really give you an idea of where he's going to be in terms of placement. Exiting 14, absolutely beautiful there. And go right here. As early as you can, hammer that throttle.
Throttle up. We might see this car with NOS tonight on the drag strip. I can't wait. That's not a joke either. Here comes Andy across the line. Can he go to the top of the board? Yes, he does. 142.492 for Andy Smedegaard in the 212 ASM car. And here's Tom O'Gorman now hunting his way down the back straightaway, getting set up for his flying laps.
Your brave pick for a poll here. I gotta razz you, but I agree with you.
I mean, it's not a safe bet to go with anybody but Tom O'Gorman. I'm gonna be honest.
And even with Thorne's, race speed that we saw over one lap before the tires go off, Tom's absolute magic. So, that was a sensible pick, and we'll see just how good he is. But he is something else here, really rolling all kinds of speed there. And it's okay to do that there because you're not on a timed lap yet. So now it starts, and just watch his speed up through this section of track. It's magnificent down through. Here's the entry into. There it is. There's 2. Little bobble over the bump. Controls it absolutely beautifully.
Now to turn 3, he'll jump on the brakes, lean on the banking here in this rainbow ASM S2000. Now Tom's season. We've talked about it a lot. Let's go through the stats one more time as he drives out of turn 3. 37 starts, 28 podiums, 20 wins, 22 poles, average finish of 4.1. So 20 wins in 37 starts, that is an incredible record, and I don't think he's done just yet.
I don't think so either. I think that, saw that little puff of that just meant he used every bit of the track, that just the outer edge of that left rear tire just nicked a little bit of dirt, didn't affect his driver momentum. Really good speed through turn 6. And now this is where he can, he's really good in these fast transitions here. Watch him. Clips that curb, flows it, uses that curb. Nice. Now, we've seen turn 10 can really bite you if you overdrive it a little bit.
Nicely done.
On a rail. You can see him right dancing on the edge of adhesion, but no wasted sideways slides. Gave up the entry there perfectly into 12. Allows him to stay tight to the right for 13, and here we go. And he's not going to use up as much track exiting as he did. Well, he actually uses up quite a bit of track there. But he's obviously looked at data and said, if you do that, you actually will gain time, even though you run a little bit longer run. Does he go to the top? Yep. Boom!
141.339. Fastest lap we've seen today. Not quite the track record, but Tomo goes to the top with one more driver left to run their shootout effort. That is Robert Thorne from ASM. That's the number 180 BMW M3. Another great season for Robert. 21 starts, 2 wins, 11 podiums, and 5.4 average finish this year. Another phenomenal driver in a phenomenal car. And Edmond, Oklahoma is his home, but this weekend at the House of Speed, I think Robert Thorne's setting up shop.
He is indeed. And had Tomo broken the record, he would have broken his own record anyway. So he set that in qualifying yesterday. But Thorne now, he really has figured out this car on these Bridgestone tires. Has said it really is working here, and he said, I know I can attack a little bit more than I have been, and the tires will be there for me. And here he comes, exiting that turn 3. Nice change of direction. Not one slip there, just look at using all of that curb. Drops the speed just a little bit.
You saw the road there at the exit of 5. Now, for those that remember last season, this was actually Robert Thorne's debut event in GLTC. It was not in this car. It was an LFX-powered Miata. Had a brake failure here, and that car ended up in the tires. But this car has been already extremely successful in the series, and he is piloting it right now north of 100 miles an hour into turn 8 and turn 9, and looking very solid while doing it. There he goes, tucks it in for 8, into 9. Not even a puff of dirt, kept it on the curbing, and now to turn 10 on the brakes. Flask sector here for Robert Thorne.
Watch it here. See what happens as he turns in. Little bobble there, and that got him a little bit wide. He did a nice job getting the correction without losing a lot of speed. You could see it twitched a bit.
So Robert Thorne through turn 13 and 14. Coming back to the checkers, the track record now in GLTC is a 140.9. He's going to need to almost do that to beat Tom O'Gorman at the top of the board. Here we come to the start-finish line. Can Robert Thorne take pole or really start somewhere else? Across the line for Thorne, top of the board by a 1/10 of a second, 141.229 for Robert Thorne.
And that was with that little hiccup coming through turn 10. So that was a great, great lap.
Wow.
Yeah, and he just carried serious speed everywhere around there. Nice job by Robert Thorne. And he got his second win earlier this morning of the year, and now adds a pole on top of it. Well done in that number 180. I think that would be, that's his first pole, isn't it?
It could be.
I think so.
With that, we're going to wrap things up here. We'll head more to more track battle and GLTC coverage here this afternoon. We'll see you on the other side. Take a quick lunch break. Be back for more later today. Kyle Heyer alongside Greg Kramer. We'll see you later. Coverage of Grid Life Finals is brought to you by Valvoline, the official motor oil of Grid Life. Momo, made in Italy since 1964. FCP Euro, every part you buy is guaranteed for life. eBay Motors, let's ride. And Falcon Tires. The Falcon Azenas RT660 is the official tire of Club TR.
At 303, we're always chasing perfection. Protect your ride with graphene nanospray coating. Now, boost protection, shine, and slickness with Graphene Detailer. Level up your detailing game. Harness the power of graphene with 303.
Ed Vance here, and I'm at my favorite place again.
Sorry, did you say your name is Ed Vance?
That's me.
Like advance?
Crazy, right? And it just so happens he knows everything in advance.
Oh, you know the future? Did you know I needed 10W30?
No. I just know everything here in Advanced Auto Parts, like where the 10W30 is.
So you don't know what I'll do next?
Actually, I do. You will be going to the oil aisle.
He's good.
He's Ed Vance.
I spent a lot of time here.
He's here a lot.
This is how we advance.
The Falcon Azenas RT660 is the enthusiast choice for ultra-high performance. Engineered for predictable handling and stability, the RT660 provides maximum traction both on and off the track. Your competitive edge has arrived with the Falcon Azenas RT660.
The more power you have, the more grip you have, the more you push the limits, the more stopping power you need. Get race-proven technology. Hawk Performance.
We've been powering the American road since before it was paved. Our first breakthrough in motor oil was introducing it. And we've been reinventing it ever since. From the world's first high-mileage oil to the world's first synthetic blend. There are those who change with the times, and those who drive them. Valvoline, the original motor oil.
For those who don't settle when others do. For those who are set free by performance and believe innovation can take you anywhere.